Hello world. Good morning, namaste and Nisam Bulavinaka from Sydney, Australia. I am Sashi Singh, the host of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. As we count down to the days to the highly anticipated election in Fiji, welcome to another blockbuster episode of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Today, we unravel some of the myths of this election campaign, as well as sort out the BS that comes out of the mouths of elected officials and try and unravel the main issues in the election in Fiji. Welcome once again to the highly anticipated weekly edition of our program, SSTP. Fiji goes to the polls in just 17 more days. Remember, Fiji, your vote has power. Exercise your right to vote. And talking of voting, I have received notification from DHL Express that my voting papers are well on its way, and I expect to receive the ballot papers on 1st December this year. That is something that I'm really looking forward to, as I want to exercise my right to vote. I must vote, and vote I will, because there is no point in complaining and grumbling about things if you do not want to play a proactive role in the governance of your country. So let me reiterate, I am really excited about voting, and I hope that wherever you are, you will do the right thing and turn up at your nearest polling station to exercise your God-given right to have a say in the governance of your country. You have the right to exercise your right to vote. So please turn up on Wednesday, the 14th of December 2022, and vote for the candidate of your choice, because if you do not vote, you do not have a right to moan and groan, to witch about the government that will be in place for the next 4 years. Today, in episode 46 of SSTP, we continue our series of interviews with the 5 main opposition leaders in Fiji. So far, the 3 previous Sundays, we have met Mr. Savanatha Narumbe of the Unity Fiji Party, Mr. William Ngavoka, the leader of Sodelpa, and then last week we met Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry, leader of the Fiji Labour Party. Today we meet the leader of the National Federation Party, a man many believe will be in the next government to lead Fiji, and most importantly for these elections, to be known as candidate number 427, Professor Biman Prasad. We shall on Sunday, 4th December 2022, that is next Sunday, be speaking to the leader of the People's Alliance Party, Mr. Sithiveni Rambuka. And then on the last Sunday before polling day, that is the 11th of December 2022, we will have all 5 major opposition leaders together on the one forum on SSTP. Now that program will address their campaigns and allow each opposition leader a window of opportunity to give their opposition leaders address to the nation. I hope that is something you all are looking forward to, as I most certainly am looking forward to that program as well. That will be a program not to be missed, because you'll be able to hear all 5 opposition party leaders for the very last time before polling day on the one platform. That is live via Facebook and on YouTube on Sashi Singh's Talking Point platform. You can listen to the opposition leaders' address to the nation and make up your mind who to vote for if you have not decided by then. So, exciting times ahead as we look forward to the programs on SSTP. SSTP is also planning to come your way live on the 2 days leading up to the elections, that is Monday and Tuesday, the evenings of 12th and 13th of December, with a countdown to the actual polling day. I will announce my election panel leading up to the time. Then, of course, on the evening of the 14th and 15th of December, we shall return via live on Facebook and try and make sense of the whole election 2022, Hopefully, we shall have a fairly good idea as to the patterns that emerge from the elections washdown by that time. I hope wherever you are today, you are well settled in to enjoy what promises to be a captivating, engaging, and enlightening interview in today's episode 46 with my chief guest, Professor Biman Prasad, leader of the National Federation Party and candidate number 427. Now, immediately after speaking with Professor Biman Prasad, we will also meet a former chief guest on SSTP who has decided to put her name forward to contest General Elections 2022. She appeared on episode 12 of SSTP on Sunday, 13th March this year. Ladies and gentlemen, my second guest today will be none other than former founder and CEO of Friend, Ms. Sashi Kiran, candidate number 207. All that and a whole lot more in today's episode 46 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. As always, one big kere, I request that today, as we go right around the world by the wonders of Facebook Live and YouTube, that you please share the SSTP page on your own timelines so that we may share the interview with Professor Biman Prasad and Ms. Shashi Kiran with as many interested people as possible. To ensure that you receive instant notifications for all future programs, please like the SSTP page and follow us too. Welcome to the Thinking People's program, Sashi Singh's Talking Point, live on Facebook and on YouTube. Let me say to our viewers that at this juncture, normally, I would introduce our contributor Nikhil Singh on SSTP to present his news segment. I have asked Nikhil Singh to wait for a while as I need to get some things off my chest. I need to speak up and let you know exactly how I feel insofar as recent events in Fiji have unfolded. People have been writing to me via the SSTP Messenger page, sending me private messages and emails seeking my views on the judgment handed down by the High Court of Fiji in the Richard Naidu committal hearings. For a start, let me say, as a practicing solicitor, to me, it was one of the darkest days in Fiji's history when Richard Naidu was sentenced this week. I am absolutely annoyed, absolutely pissed off, and absolutely disgusted at the manner in which a purportedly innocuous word, a tongue-in-cheek word, could cause such huge dramas in Fiji's judicial circles. Let us look at the background to this case. In January this year, a judgment was delivered in a civil case by the High Court of Fiji. The plaintiff in the case sought an injunction against various defendants from further dealing with a certain property. At paragraph 4 of the judgment, it read, "This application for injection was heard on 22/11/2021, I believe." At paragraph 5, it was stated, "By the time injection application was heard, a winding-up order was made by the court against the first defendant." When one looks at the judgment, common sense tells us that the judge obviously meant to use the word injunction, but somewhere along the way, either by way of a typographical error or what have you, the judgment contained the word injection. Enter Richard Naidu, who is a senior lawyer and who is not only widely respected in Fiji, but also has widespread respect overseas. Richard Naidu referred to the above paragraphs in the judge's orders on his Facebook page and made a tongue-in-cheek comment as follows, and I quote, "Maybe our judges need to be shielded from all this vaccination campaigning. I'm pretty sure all the applicant wanted was an injunction." He put a thinking face emoji on his Facebook page, end of quote. That was the extent of Richard Naidu's Facebook post. In effect, all that Richard Naidu was pointing out, be it tongue-in-cheek, that there was a spelling error in the judgment. That was all that he pointed out. From the time of Richard Naidu's post till several months later, nothing happened. In the meanwhile, Richard Naidu was active in politics and associated himself with members of the People's Alliance and the National Federation Party. Somewhere along the way, Richard Naidu was perceived as a political threat, one may be led to believe. It was not till several months later the Attorney General of Fiji commenced contempt proceedings against Richard Naidu. The brunt of the Attorney General's complaint was that Richard Naidu's Facebook posting scandalized the court and the judiciary in Fiji and lowered its authority. My question is whether in the court of public opinion the general public would have reached the same conclusion as the Attorney General that Richard Naidu's post had scandalized the court and the judiciary in Fiji. By Richard Naidu poking fun at the error in judgment, the Attorney General was implying that the public or sections thereof would no longer respect the courts and their standing or status would be reduced because of Richard Naidu's posting. The High Court judge hearing the contempt charges against Richard Naidu agreed with the Attorney General and concluded, 1. The Facebook post imputed or implied that the judges lacked competency, and 2. There was a real or substantial risk that Richard Naidu's comments would diminish confidence in the administration of justice. As my good friend and St. Thomas School old boy and widely respected senior lawyer Graham Everett Leong said, it is to be noted that Richard Naidu's postings on Facebook did not question the judge's integrity or honesty, did not allege bad faith, or a lack of impartiality or personality, or personally attack the judge or suggest any impropriety. Richard Naidu's comments were in jest. The judge, however, found Richard Naidu guilty of contempt of court, that is to say, scandalizing the court. Mr. Naidu will be sentenced for the offence in January 2023. Let me now explore the concept of scandalizing the court. Scandalizing contempt was justified by the High Court in Australia in Gallagher v. Durack, a 1983 Australian case, on the following basis. The authority of the law rests on public confidence, and it is important to the stability of society that the confidence of the public should not be shaken by baseless attacks on the integrity or impartiality of courts or judges. The question that arises is whether Richard Naidu's Facebook comments shook the confidence of the public. I would say it did not. The offence of scandalizing the court is aimed at protecting the administration of justice as an ongoing process, meaning the scope of this law is not limited to publications that comment on a specific trial. Rather, the offence covers publications which comments on the courts and judges generally. Such publications commonly fall within the category of either scurrilous abuse or accusations of partiality. Examples of comments that have been held to constitute scandalizing contempt include calling a judge a cretin in the presence of the media, suggesting that an individual or a group of persons, such as a union, can influence a judge's decision, allegations that the judge was racist and that this influenced the judge's decisions, allegations that judicial officers were biased and corrupt, or reprimanding judicial decisions. These are examples of what constitutes scandalizing comment. In my opinion, Richard Naidu made no such references to either a judge or a judge's decision. The principles engaged by scandalizing contempt were summarized by Justice Cummins in the Victorian Supreme Court case Anisa v. Parsons. First, proceedings for contempt of court is not and must not be in diminution of free speech. That is, it should not reduce free speech. Second, proceedings for contempt of court is to preserve the administration of justice. Third, proceedings for contempt of court is not to protect the individual person of the judge. Let me state another fact here. In today's political and social environment, public debate and freedom of expression are highly valued and considered a necessary part of democracy. The nature of criticism has also changed, as well as the technology available to disseminate and access information. In this context, the ongoing adaptability of and need for the law of scandalizing contempt and the assumptions on which it is based are being questioned. In the United Kingdom, for instance, the law of scandalizing contempt has been abolished. Long before then, the courts in England had considered scandalizing contempt virtually obsolescent. Similarly, in the United States and Canada, the law has been found to be incompatible with their respective constitutional rights to freedom of expression. There is some guidance from the courts as to the scope of the test for scandalizing contempt. For example, it has been stated that the act or publication must pose a real or serious risk as opposed to a remote possibility that the publication will undermine public confidence in the administration of justice. The question I say that must be asked is whether what Richard Naidu posed a real or serious risk that went to undermine the public confidence in the administration of justice. You can be the judge of that. I, for one, do not believe that it did. In his dissenting judgment in the case of Gallagher, Justice Murphy stated that the offense is so vague and general that it is an oppressive limitation on free speech. Yes, you heard it right, that it is an oppressive limitation on free speech. In light of this, Justice Murphy supported the higher threshold test used in the United States, that the substantive evil be extremely serious and the degree of imminence extremely high before utterances can be punished. There is widespread view that scandalizing offense is inconsistent with constitutional right of freedom of expression and that it has a chilling effect on free speech. Lord Denning has pointed out that the contempt powers of the court should not be used as a means to uphold judicial dignity. He emphasized, "We do not fear criticism, nor do we resent it." In November 2021, the Law Reform Commission of the State of Victoria recommended that the offence be abolished. The public expects the courts will be open to robust scrutiny. Public trust and confidence in the court is best earned rather than commanded, and exercising the power to punishment for this contempt undermines rather than bolsters respect from the courts. Amnesty International, the Bar Association of India, the International Bar Association, and others have criticized the prosecution of Mr. Naidu. So much so, even the New York Times ran the headlines on Friday, and I quote, "He pointed out a judge's goof, now he faces jail time in Fiji." That headline that appeared in the New York Times on Friday. As a practicing solicitor here in Australia, I am proud to see that the Law Council of Australia has also come out to condemn the proceedings against Mr. Richard Naidu. Let me share this with you. And I quote, "The Law Council arranged for Nicholas Cowdery, AO, King's Counsel, to observe the hearing held in Suva on 10th November 2022 on behalf of the Law Council and the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute. Mr. Cowdery has reported that in his observation, while there was formal procedural regularity, Mr. Naidu was denied procedural fairness and was not afforded a fair trial for reasons including concerns about the bona fides of the proceedings, the attempted reversal of the onus of proof, Mr. Naidu's inability to test the evidence against him, having been prevented from cross-examining the sole witness, the Attorney General, and Mr. Naidu's inability to know in advance of the hearing the case against him for trial, with the judge refusing to rule on Mr. Naidu's challenges to the admissibility of evidence before proceeding with the hearing. In particular, The Law Council is concerned that Mr. Naidu's inability to test the evidence against him appears to be in breach of Article 14.3e of the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR, and Section 14.2.1 of the Constitution of the Republic of Fiji, which provide the right of an accused to examine and challenge the witnesses and evidence presented against them. Further, Mr. Naidu's inability to know in advance the case against him for trial denied him notice of which parts of the evidence would be before the court when it made its determination and which parts would not. By requiring Mr. Naidu to proceed in such a state of unawareness and uncertainty, the judge did not appear to comply with Article 14.3a of the ICCPR and Section 14.2a of the Constitution, which provided that an accused person is entitled to minimum guarantee to be informed of the nature and cause of the charge against them and evidence upon which the prosecution intends to rely. I say, well said, Law Council of Australia. A criminal conviction for Mr. Naidu would have serious consequences for him, including cancellation of his license to practice law, a hefty fine and/or possibly a term of imprisonment. The fact of the matter in Fiji is how much longer can the general public be silent on things that affect their daily lives? Why must the people in Fiji live in fear? Why should there be a denial of free speech? There is a great sense of betrayal and a sense of helplessness when an innocuous statement can be dragged through the courts in a criminal proceeding to bring a harm to a citizen of a country, a citizen who is a community-spirited person, a man of integrity, an upright citizen, and a consummate professional whose record in professional life and community service outshines even some of those in government who use public funds to enhance their popularity. Fiji, this is a wake-up call for you. Are you going to sit silently by and let the atrocities that you have been observing for the last 16 years go on by? Are you going to continue to live in an authoritarian land? If you want to regain your fundamental freedom, then you must act. You must act now. You must take part in the election on 14 December 2022 and vote for your rights. Vote so that you may be able to express yourself freely. Vote so that you may be able to speak without fear of recrimination. Vote so that your children may have a better life. Vote to keep the country clean and free from oppression. Vote so that you know you have exercised your freedom to choose your government. To sit quietly by and let someone use the law of scandalizing the court to bring down a political opponent is akin to allowing someone to punch you in the guts without having the ability to defend yourself. Fiji, let this sort of political thuggery not take place in our country. We must put a stop to this. As I said right at the outset, I am pissed off with this whole saga, and I hope you are too. To Richard Naidu, I say to you, here at SST, we stand by you. You have stood tall and steadfast, my friend. Our prayers are with you and your family. We are in solidarity with you. This fight has only just begun. I am a very staunch believer in one thing, and that is that the truth will always prevail. I am Sashi Singh, and this has been my editorial piece in the Richard Naidu saga, and I beg your pardon if I've taken too much time for that. Well, I had to get that off my chest. And waiting in the wings all this time has been Nikhil Singh. Nikhil, I apologize for keeping you waiting. I had to get things off my chest as some things needed to be said. I have been angry, and there you have it. Would you like to say anything on this, Nikhil?
Thank you, Sashi. It's good to be back with you on this platform. I was going to include this story, but you have just delivered a very powerful editorial, and well said. I think you have just gotten across the point that I think many are talking about. So well done on that editorial, Sashi. There is one thing that I did pick out on this, as I've been following this story from day one. I do know that the Bar Association of India has released a statement. And there's one paragraph that really caught my attention, and I read it with interest. And that statement reads, and I quote, the Bar Association of India says it is common across the world, particularly in jurisdictions which uphold the rule of law, for members of the bar to engage in comment on the court which extends to humor. So I thought that was really nicely captured in that statement, Sashi.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Nicole, for your words. How have you been? What was the experience like at the 5th ITUC 22 World Congress in Melbourne last weekend?
Yeah, firstly, apologies. I missed the program last weekend as I was in this Congress, the 5th World ITUC Congress in Melbourne. Look, some 800 trade union leaders from across the globe converged at the Melbourne Convention Centre. It was a really, really good, a pretty hectic conference or Congress, I must say. The highlight for me was, of course, the Australian Prime Minister addressing the Congress in announcing that his government will legislate, will table legislation to ratify the ILO's Convention 190. The 190 deals with the elimination of harassment and bullying at work. So that is a really big announcement, and it's quite encouraging to see the Australian government moving to put word in action by way of legislating.
Wonderfully said, Nikhil. Well done. Now, we are running behind. As you know, I've taken a lot of time. We have Professor Biman Prasad waiting in the wings. But for your segment, let us recap the main news headlines in Fiji and Australia. Let's begin with this one. A complaint against Fiji Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama by veteran politician and former opposition leader Mick Beddoes has been dismissed by the Supervisor of Elections. Now, this was in relation to a statement the PM made at a Fiji First Party rally. In another case, Saneem has referred a government minister to FICAC. Please tell us what's happening here.
So actually, dismissing the complaint, Saneem found that Beddoes is incorrect in his assertions in relation to the statements uttered by Frank Bainimarama during the campaign rally in Nosori. He said, having reviewed the statements, it noted that Bainimarama was, in fact, providing his opinion on the aftermath of any person attempting to enter into a property that is currently classified as freehold. Saneem went on to say that Beddoes did not provide any evidence in his complaint that the utterances made by the Prime Minister urged the Commission or intended that the offence incited be committed. In another matter, Saneem has referred Fiji First candidate and Assistant Health Minister Alexander O'Connor to the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption, or FICAC, for a probable breach of the Electoral Act. Saneem says a medical officer had complained to the Electoral Commission after being requested by O'Connor that he assist in the distribution of his campaign materials.
All right. Now, Fiji Women's Crisis Centre coordinator Shamima Ali, a former guest of SSTP, has spoken about the attacks on her by the Fiji First government, saying it has been the worst of any government she has seen in her 40 years of public life. She says the government does not like accountability. Please tell us more, Nikhil.
Shamima Ali always calls a spade, Sashi. In an interview with the Fiji Times, she said government does not like accountability and it has a very narrow and limited understanding of the word political. Ali said during her 40-year career at the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre, she had been criticised on many occasions, but never the way she has been now. She said, and I quote, under previous governments, there were attacks every now and then, but we could still sit down and talk together. You could still have meetings and have a Talanoa session and listen to both sides and so on. She said the Fiji First government doesn't want any criticism, no matter from what quarter. So that's where we are. Ali said Fiji of today is a mere shadow of the country it was in the past. Sashi?
I like what Shamima says. She's a lady who can call a spade very clearly. Now, Nikhil, we have in recent years seen claims made by opposition party politicians about government struggling to pay bills. A former economist of the Reserve Bank of Fiji last week confirmed that the Fiji First government borrowed $100 million from the Reserve Bank. Pray do tell us, what was this for, Nikhil?
Yes, Sashi, former economist of the Reserve Bank of Fiji and Unity Fiji Party candidate Mohammed Khan says in the fourth quarter of 2018 and the first quarter of 2019, the government took out $100 million loan from RBF to pay for civil servants' salaries. While speaking at a rally in Nassori last week, Khan said when the government doesn't have money, they need to borrow to fund its daily operations, which includes paying people's salaries. Khan says the reality of the matter is that they are giving Fijians the money which has been borrowed, Sashi.
All right, now let's quickly talk about the Multinational Observer Group, which started the work in Fiji. What have they been up to so far?
Yes, the members of the MOG have witnessed a number of key electoral activities since its establishment, as reported in FBC. These include National Candidates List bordereau, the commencement of ballot production, and the printing, transportation, and storage of postal ballots. The MOG has also continued meeting with government and elections officials, political parties, media, police, regional organizations, NGOs, civil society organizations, including religious groups and human rights groups, as well as representatives from the general public in Fiji. Sashi, next week I will bring you some obligations placed on the MOG by the Fijian government, which brings into question the MOG's independence.
I look forward to that, Nikhil. Now, the Fiji Elections Office has published the unaudited statement of assets and liabilities as of October 2022 for the 9 political parties. We know parties have to jump through hoops when it comes to fundraising under the electoral laws, where you have to even cut a proper receipt for selling a roti parcel. Tell us which party is the richest. Let me guess. All right, I won't guess. Tell us.
I don't think you'll be surprised with this, Sashi. The Fiji First Party is the richest political party in Fiji, according to the information released by the Fijian Elections Office. The party had $544,658.32 in 6 bank accounts, the highest amount of $247,000 held in an account at HFC Bank. The People's Alliance had just under $185,000. The National Federation Party just a little over $67,000, and the Fiji Labour Party declared $26,923. Unity Fiji $16,000, and Sodelpa declared just over $2,100. Sashi.
All right, Nikhil, now closer to home, Victorians went to the ballot box yesterday. I believe we do have some results.
We do, Sashi. The ABC has reported that Victorian Labor Premier Daniel Andrews has secured a historic third term of majority government in an emphatic victory, which delivered an electoral disaster to the Liberal Party. This is the Liberals' second consecutive defeat under opposition leader Matthew Guy. The ABC has projected Labor will win more than 45 seats and could even come close to the 55-seat majority it enjoyed during its second term in power.
All right, and Nikhil, before we wrap up your segment for today, some devastating news from Western Australia regarding a seasonal worker from Fiji. Sad news indeed.
Definitely sad news, Sashi. The stabbing death of a 41-year-old Pacific Australia Labor mobility worker, the seasonal worker in Australia, has left her family in unimaginable pain as they grapple with news of this tragedy. Vitorina Bruce died after an alleged stabbing inside a busy Perth hotel last Sunday, and Australian police say a 42-year-old man has been charged with murder. The mother of 5 was working in the hospitality sector after securing a two-year contract under this seasonal worker scheme 6 months ago, Sashi.
Nikhil, that is indeed a sad story, and our thoughts go to the family of the deceased. Look, thank you very much once again for your contribution, Nikhil. Sincerely appreciated. Look forward to your piece next week. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Likewise. Thank you, Sashi.
You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point on Facebook Live. We ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. As I say, Fijians want to know. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you have not done so. Just before we begin our program with our chief guest, Professor Biman Prasad, I have an important announcement to share with our viewers. Sashi Singh's Talking Point, SSTP recognizes that questioning, constructive arguments, and opinions are part of conversation. But posts with aggressive personal attacks, profanity, name-calling, swearing, defamatory in nature and/or threatening will be removed immediately, and offenders will be blocked from being a part of the SSTP program. Let's observe these rules and enjoy the program. Just before we meet our chief guest, let me take a moment and thank all our viewers and followers. Last Monday, 21st November, we celebrated our first anniversary of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. To all those who have sent their best wishes through the SSTP page and via private messages, I thank you all so very much. I apologize for the delay in responding to you, as I have been most unwell this last week. I was tested positive for COVID, and I have been in isolation. Things have been a bit of a struggle. The symptoms are bad, to say the least. However, I hope to be able to respond to each message personally sometime this week. To our viewers, thank you very much, because without you, there will be no audience. And as I said last Sunday, my biggest thank you goes to the brave men and women who have put their hands up and decided to come on the SSTP platform as my chief guests to face questions from me. They did that wholeheartedly because they did not have fear. Rather, they wanted the world to hear about what they wanted to say and to use the SSTP platform to speak openly, freely, in a transparent manner, and above all, without fear. To all my chief guests on SSTP, thank you very much for your participation and contribution. Sincerely appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to meet our chief guest on Sashi Singh's Talking Point for episode 46. He really needs no introduction and has appeared on SSTP on 3 previous occasions so far. I thank him for readily accepting our invitation to come on today's program. Our chief guest today is the leader of the National Federation Party, Professor Biman Prasad. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you, sir. Welcome, candidate number 427. Good morning from Sydney, Australia. Good afternoon in Fiji. Nisam Bolavinaka, and namaste to you, sir.
Good morning and good afternoon, Sashi. It's my pleasure to be with you again, and I want to thank all those who are joining us in the show.
I must apologize to you. I've kept you waiting for a long time. My editorial piece took a bit longer than I expected, and my sincere apologies for me to keep you waiting. I apologize.
That was a very, very good editorial piece from you, Sashi.
Well, having spoken about that editorial, let me begin today's episode 46, Professor Biman, by raising that matter of Richard Naidu. You, together with a few politicians from the opposition parties, together with friends, attended the High Court in Suva to hear the judgment that was handed down last Thursday. How would you describe that gathering in Suva at the High Court?
Well, Sashi, there was a sense of anxiety, and I know many people who've been attending, the court appearances or court case over the past few weeks were saddened by the turn of events. But Richard Naidu, as I've known him as a friend, as everybody else in Fiji and abroad knows, is a man of absolute integrity, a man with a lot of vision and a heart for Fiji and its people. And that's why we are saddened that he is not contesting the election with the National Federation Party. We were hoping that he would. And obviously, it's a loss for the National Federation Party. And indeed, it's a big loss for the people of this country and for the next government that we will form after 14th of December.
All right. Well, because Richard's judgment is going to be handed down sometime in January, I think it's only fair that we should leave that as it is. And let's concentrate on things that I have to raise with you today, Professor Biman. Now, let me ask you about the campaign period. I've asked this of all the other opposition leaders who've come on the program in the last 3 weeks. This has been a first in Fiji's history. It's been a long campaign from April of this year. How would you describe the campaign period And what has been the effects of this long campaign?
That, Sachi, has been the most disturbing, and as I've said before, an unnecessary electoral law that defined the campaign period. I mean, we officially went into the campaign period on the 26th of April, and nobody in this country or in any political party ever knew when the election was going to be held. And for 6 months, for almost 5 to 6 months, the opposition parties were subjected to all the draconian pieces of legislation and laws governing our campaign period. Campaign materials, what you could say, what you can't say. And yet, the 25 people, out of the government run by the Fiji First Party, used that campaign period to use government resources. Ministers were all over the place, doing all sorts of things, gathering people and essentially campaigning, and the laws didn't apply to them. And Sashi, let me also say this, that some of them still have no shame after the parliament has been dissolved. They are still using government Facebook pages. They're still going out there and opening things, getting people and campaigning. I mean, this is the absurdity of the electoral laws and the shamefulness, and without any convention and conscience, these people from the Fiji First Party, who still remain ministers, are using state resources to campaign. And we know they are campaigning when they go to these meetings. I mean, they try and announce that, okay, this is our plan. They're all campaigning, and that too using state resources.
You've mentioned double standards, government ministers openly campaigning. Now, the electoral law has placed a greater burden on the opposition parties than it ever did. How have you seen that burden effect?
Well, it is certainly a huge burden on the opposition parties, Sachi. The requirements. I mean, we have to keep looking back, 24 hours, as not to breach any laws. And sometimes, we are not sure as to how the authorities are going to interpret those laws, and we are constantly looking and trying to interpret and ensure that we don't breach the law. And we know that the fines and the jail terms stipulated in some of those laws is quite frightening. So it has created a environment where election is no longer fun. I mean, I have contested election in the previous under the previous constitution and the electoral system. Election is a time when people want to express their opinions and views and be part of. It's a celebration of democracy. Election is a celebration of democracy, and people are free to engage and join political parties and fund political parties. What we have in this country now is a set of laws which restrict all that kind of democratic spaces for people to participate. And obviously the opposition parties are under the watch all the time, and the ruling party and those who made these laws are not. So we can see very clearly double standards as a result of these draconian laws.
Professor Prasad, I must address a few questions that may not seem nice, but I've got to ask you these questions. Apart from the pressures of campaigning under what many have termed draconian laws, you have had to overcome a personal attack on your integrity and leadership of a major political party. I'm referring, of course, to the charges laid against you of 2 counts of indecently insulting or annoying a person. How much of a distraction was this in your campaign trail for you and the party?
Well, Sachi, naturally, there was anxiety within our supporters, anxiety within my family. Obviously, my wife is a very smart, strong woman. She understood that these things can be thrown at you in politics. But as I said, I was unfazed by those accusations and allegations, and I'm glad that it's behind us. But when you know, Sashi, that you haven't done anything wrong, and that your focus is on the bigger objective, and the bigger objective is to bring about change in this country and to form the next government so that we can address the disaster, whether it's economic disaster, whether it's a health disaster, or any other disaster that this government, the Fiji First government under two-man rule, have created. And so my focus was always the people, and I have had absolute support from within the party, from friends, because everyone who knew me knew that I was focused on winning the election, and that's where we are. And I'm happy that we are forging ahead, and we have set our sight on forming the next government. That's my focus right now.
Okay, now the director of the office of the director of public prosecutions, the directive by the office of the director of public prosecutions to not lay any charges against you must have come as a welcome relief to you and the party as well to focus on the election battle ahead. Now, were you at all surprised that the Commissioner of Police made this whole thing with the ODPP into a public spectacle?
Well, as my lawyers have said, it was extraordinary and unusual. But my lawyers have left the matter there. There is a case pending in the High Court of defamation against a media organization and the former candidate who made the allegation. So, Sashi, I will leave those issues there. But as I said, it was a big relief to party supporters, my family members, and those who were anxious about what was happening, around all these allegations. But as I said, I was never unfazed. I was always focused on the objective, and that is to win the election and form the next government.
All right, I have one final personal question. One thing that I must say on record here is that despite all the pressures placed upon you by the charges and the public scrutiny that you faced, Biman, you always maintained that sense of dignity. You did not come out in public calling people names or making accusations. You just maintained your dignity throughout. You held back from attacking people who were hell-bent in bringing you down. Well, I say well done to you, hats off to you. My question is, where did you get that inner strength of restraint to just maintain yourself in that dignified manner?
Shashi, that's a very good question. I grew up in an environment where my parents and those, elders around villages and settlements, one thing that we were always told that, you must remain focused on the truth. And if you haven't done anything wrong, then you shouldn't be afraid. And it's always a matter of respect and understanding of what goes around you. But in politics, I have always understood that these sort of things will come. There will be attacks on you, attacks on your family. As I said, my wife understands this very well. She's been under attack by the Prime Minister, Frank Bainimarama himself. I mean, he's attacked her on numerous occasions, and just recently, I think it was 2 days ago, he's still talking about her. I mean, I would not stoop to that gutter level. I think I will leave him in that gutter. I would never go around as a politician attacking the families of other politicians, because in politics, there is always anxiety amongst family members. They are the ones who bear the brunt of attacks and other kind of allegations against politicians. So I'm not going to go there. I will let the Prime Minister stay in that gutter. And that's why I'm going to leave it. My wife is, as I said, is a very, very strong woman, a very smart woman. She can stand on her own. She's a highly qualified, accomplished woman. And so no amount of attack from Frank Bainimarama or anybody else is going to take the focus that I have on getting rid of those who are running the government now and forming the next government.
Well said, and hats off to you and to your good wife, Dr. Rajni Prasad, as well. Now, it takes a coward of a man to come after family. And what I can say is to any politician, gloves off, fight the fight, do not fight the family. Have a little break, have a sip of water. We'll come back, and I want to talk to you about the People's Alliance and the NFP partnership, Professor Biman. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is the leader of the National Federation Party, Professor Biman Prasad, candidate number 427. Immediately after this interview, we will meet National Federation Party candidate number 207, the charismatic Ms. Shashi Kiran. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you can. Please share the page as well. Professor Biman, let me now address the relationship that the National Federation Party has forged with the People's Alliance Party. Now, in April this year, the two parties announced that they had entered into a memorandum of understanding. 7 months have lapsed now since that MOU. How would you describe that relationship today?
Shashi, that's a very good question. We have a very strong partnership, and in fact, if I may say so, that partnership has grown stronger and stronger, and we are working together as a team. We are absolutely focused on winning the next election. We have a vision of a government that will be different in style, in process, and how we deal with the people once we form the government. So we have a solid partnership between Mr. Rambuka and Biman Prasad and the team. We are going to provide not a two-man government, but a team government, a cabinet government, an inclusive government, a government that will work for the people and be with the people and consult them. So that's the partnership that we have forged. And as I said, it's getting stronger and stronger, and people are loving that.
I love the way as you spoke about that partnership. There seemed to be that sense of joy, that sense of excitement that's coming out from you as you speak. Let me assure you, I'm going to take you through a number of programs today, and with your help, I want to dissect things so that the voters of Fiji know exactly what they will get when they vote for the National Federation Party. Now, talking about...
Just before that, Sashi, just to add to that partnership and the excitement that people have, for the first time after the 16 years of two-man rule, I think there is a sense of exuberance in the community, in the people. They can see a very clear alternative to the two-man rule. They can see two leaders who are talking about love, who are talking about Veilomani, who are talking about working together with people, who are talking about taking away the fear, who are talking about consultation and dialogue. And I think that excites the people of this country, and that is why the partnership is looking as a solid alternative, and we are feeling the vibes from the people as we go around the country.
Talking about the vibes, last week the National Federation Party, together with the People's Alliance, you held major rallies in Raki Raki, Mba, Lautoka. How would you describe the turnout at those rallies and the mood that prevailed there?
Absolutely fantastic, Sashi. We didn't offer people, umbrellas. We didn't offer them sulus. We didn't offer them ballpoint pens. We
T-shirts.
invited people. We t-shirts. We invited people, and people came to our meeting in big numbers to listen to the leaders, listen to the candidates, listen to our policies, listen to a new vision that we have set out to achieve for this country. And so the people, come on their own will to listen to us. We didn't buzz people, from huge distances. We just announced that this is what we're going to do when we come to these locations. We will speak to the people, we'll meet them, and people are joining us. So the sense of the elation, there's some kind of elation amongst the people who come to these meetings, because they're all expecting a change and they're all supporting a change.
I must say a very big thank you. A person like me who lives abroad but who follows everything that happens in Fiji to a certain point, I must thank you and also the People's Alliance for putting those rallies live on Facebook so that people like me, we can watch things happening in real time as and when it happens. So thank you very much for that. Now, Professor Biman, there seems to be a groundswell of support for the National Federation Party and the People's Alliance, and in some quarters there is this big belief that the NFP and the PA are on course to form the next government of Fiji. However, as the election battle continues, the Fiji First Party have come out saying that Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka does not have a track record. Now, surely this is not the case, is it? I mean, how would you respond to such a statement by the Fiji First?
Well, first of all, let me say that nobody forgets the 1987 coup. Nobody forgets the 2000 coup and the 2006 coup. Although these people in the Fiji First would like to forget 2000 and 2006. But Sitiveni Rimbuka's record and the NFP's record, from 1992 until, they gave Fiji a widely acclaimed, world-renowned 1997 constitution. And the other record of those two parties in parliament during their time, was the substantial help for the sugar industry, a stable economic environment. But when Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz talk about track record, look at Frank Bainimarama's track record. He did the coup in 2006, and what he said, no one in the interim government is going to contest the election. So he started telling lies after 2006 coup, and he's continued to tell lies till today, inside parliament and outside parliament. I mean, look at the track record in the last 15 years of Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum. A crippling economy, a crippling level of debt piled up on the people of this country, the worst health services ever in this country, dilapidated, infrastructure, the whole mess in the education system. What track record is this man talking about? I mean, these guys should go back and look into the mirror and ask the people a track record of no water in the taps for people throughout the country. That is the track record of Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum, and a track record of trashing democracy, of restricting freedom and governing through fear and threats. This is the track record. So the people of this country, fortunately, Sashi, now know who's got a real track record, and they can see through. So when Frank Bainimarama talks about track record of others, when he talks about me and Rambuka, he forgets that the people have seen his track record. We don't have to say anything. I'm just reminding the people. The people are reminding us. When we go out there, they're actually laughing at the gutter level campaign speeches coming out from the mouth of Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum. People are laughing and joking about some of the things they said, and I'm sure we will be discussing those threats by these two men in the campaign.
I will. As I said, you've spoken about issues, water, electricity. I hope to talk to you about all of those things. I want to know what the National Federation Party has plans
Sure.
for. Now, sticking with your partner, Mr. Rambuka, there are some who are saying that Sitiveni Rambuka cannot be trusted. You forged a partnership with him. I've seen you on the campaign trail. What do you say to the people of Fiji, or those doubters who say that he cannot be trusted?
Well, let me just remind those, and I respect the opinion of some of those people who still remember the events of 1987. But let me tell all those doubters out there, NFP worked with the SBT party led by Sitiveni Rambuka, who was Prime Minister. People need to remember that Sitiveni Rambuka did not win outright in 1992. The Labour Party led by Mahendra Chaudhary gave him support to become Prime Minister. Then his government was defeated in a budget session where NFP and the Labour Party voted against him with 5 other people from SBT breaking ranks and voting against his budget. And in 94 election, Sitiveni Rambuka came back with a bigger majority, and the National Federation Party under Justice Jairam Reddy came back with a bigger majority. And from 1994, they decided to work together. And Jairam Reddy trusted Rambuka, Rambuka trusted Jairam Reddy, and they worked for the next 5-6 years to bring about the 1997 Constitution. And then they also formed a partnership, SBT, NFP, GBP coalition, to fight the 99 election. They lost, but that partnership, that trust was built over those 5 or 6 years. And Jairam Reddy trusted Rambuka. I've worked with Sitiveni Rambuka when he was leader of the opposition. We've worked together over the last few years. He trusts me, I trust him. And I'm saying to the people, trust us, trust me. You know, if you, there are people obviously who will have difference of opinion, but I'm saying to them, this is one time that they should trust us, because we offer an alternative. We offer a vision to the ruin and disaster that people of this country have seen over the last 15 years. In fact, many of them who didn't see it before because of the propaganda, because people wanted to give them a chance. People are not fools. People behaved in a way because they wanted to give these people a chance. I thought that after 2014 election, these guys would behave in a more democratic way, that we would be able to forge some kind of, partnership. We will all work for the country. But many of those people like me have now realized, they have understood the failures of this government. And that's why the NFP and the People's Alliance partnership, or the People's Alliance NFP partnership, whichever way you want to put it, is a real choice, for the people of this country. And that is what people can see now. And no amount of personal attacks, threats by Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum will convince the people. People are smarter than what these guys think about them.
Nicely said. Now, talking about that partnership, People's Alliance and the NFP, what do you think the partnership offers to the people of Fiji as an alternative to what we have had in the last 16 years?
Well, the difference that people will see will be partnership with the people. The difference they will see is our ability to create the democratic space, our ability to work with the people, listen to the people without threatening them, without using draconian laws to silence them. That will be the difference. We will be transparent, open about our policies, about the way the government conducts business. That is the difference. The style of governance would be different, and where people will participate, where people will feel free to criticize us, to suggest ideas to us, and we will. So it'll be a government of partnership with the people of this country. That is going to be the difference to what they have now and what they will see with the People's Alliance and the NFP government after the 14th of December.
All right, Professor Biman, have a little break. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is the leader of the National Federation Party, Professor Biman Prasad. And shortly after, immediately after this interview, we shall also be speaking with NFP candidate Ms. Sashi Kiran as well. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you have not done so far. And if you can share this broadcast today, please do so. And all those people sending your emojis and particularly your stars today, thank you very much for that. We certainly appreciate your love emojis and stars as well. Let me bring out the subject of politics of race and climate of fear, Professor Biman. An ugly side of politics comes out when political leaders bring in the race card and try and create the element of fear in the population. Now, this is exactly what Frank Bainimarama did last week, when during the rally at Syria Park in Osori, Bainimarama had said in the iTaukei language that the conversation about returning iTaukei land can cause stabbing, murder, and blood spilt on our land, and unlawful entering of a property will happen if that conversation is condoned. Now, on any account, is this not a direct threat to the opposition parties? Is this not creating fear-mongering in the community?
It is a direct threat not only to the opposition parties, but it is a direct threat to the people of this country. When you have a prime minister, when you have an attorney general talking about instability if there is a change in government, talking about murder, talking about riot, talking about blood, you know that these guys have lost it. And let me tell you, Sashi, why these are the only two men in this country right now. None of the other political leaders have talked about threats, have talked about instability, have talked about race relations. In fact, our partnership, the PA NFP partnership, is uniting the people. People are coming together of different religion, different faiths, different races, eating and merry-making and asking questions and having important policy discussions. So NFP and PA are uniting the people of this country. And here you have these two men who are talking about stability, who are threatening the people of this country with instability. Because, and the reason why they're doing that, Sashi, is this: because they can't talk about anything else. They can't talk about the worst ever health services in this country. They can't talk about the huge debt that they piled on the people of this country. They can't talk about how they can't put water into the taps of the people. They can't talk about how they can't fix the roads in the rural areas. They can't talk about how they have not built new schools in the urban areas where teachers are struggling to teach 40, 50 students in a classroom. They don't talk about how they've destroyed the civil service through short-term contracts and instability that they've created there. They can't talk about these things. So they know that the NFP and the PA are providing a real alternative. So what they do, as they did in 2018, you remember, Ayaz saying in a meeting in Samabula, if you don't vote for somebody like Frank Bainimarama, you're putting a dagger on your necks. He said the same thing recently in Tavua. He's going to our Indo-Fijian people and threatening them, by speaking in Hindi. Oh, Bainimarama is the only one. He is the only leader. And yet these two men go around the world and saying, oh, we have genuine and true democracy. In a genuine and true democracy, a government a prime minister and the attorney general, who is supposed to be the chief lawmaker, will never threaten people. Now Ayaz Sayed Qayyum has gone one level, beyond this instability. Now he's the only one talking about, religion, communal politics. I mean, this man has descended to a gutter level of campaign, and hoping that he can divide the people along religious lines, along communal lines, along racial lines. This is precisely what Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum are doing right now, and threatening people, and pretending and putting themselves as saviors of the people. But fortunately, Sashi, none of these things will work for them, and people know why they're doing this. So yes, you are right. We are seeing the ugly side of this two-man rule now, and it is quite shameful that they are lying, about what they are saying, in terms of instability, in terms of threats. Basically, it's threatening the people that if you vote for Biman Prasad and Sitiveni Rambuka, you'll have instability. I mean, what kind of people are these? What kind of leaders are they?
All
When they
right.
threaten people.
You've answered that. Now let me ask you, why? Why do you think Bainimarama is resorting to using the fear and race card during his speeches? Is this a sign of desperate times on their part?
It absolutely is. They know that the writing is on the wall. They know that the people have understood and have seen their lies. The people are ready to change. And if I may add, Frank Bainimarama now calls me an Indo-Fijian. He
I'm
said I'm a
coming.
rich
I'm coming.
Indo-Fijian.
I'm coming to that. Don't steal my thunder. Just take to the questions because I'm coming to that. That's a separate question I have. Let me ask you then. So you agreed that.
Thank you. I'll come to that. Yes, thank you.
So you've agreed that it's desperate times that they resort to using fear and race card during their speeches. Now, you've just touched on that. Let me ask you. It seems evident that the political pressure seems to be getting to the Fiji First Party, as the attacks on the opposition seems to be getting personal. Now, what did you make of Bainimarama's comments when he said that you may be a rich Indo-Fijian who will just get on a plane and go overseas? What did you make of that?
Well, this is not the first time that Frank Bainimarama has called me Indo-Fijian or Indian. In fact, in 2014, he said, I'm an Indian, and I'm here because of him. So while they go around and say that everybody is a Fijian, then suddenly I become an Indo-Fijian, and that too a rich one. I can't say, Sashi, that I'm poor. Whatever I have, I made it through my own hard work, unlike, some of them in government today.
Yes.
But obviously, that shows Bainimarama's desperation to go down to that gutter level and make those personal attacks and threats.
Okay. So he said, you'll just get on a plane and go overseas. Let me examine this a little further. Let me ask you, did you leave Fiji after the events of 1987?
Sashi, I didn't. I was there. I was at the forefront of the protest against the coup and fight for democracy.
All right. What about the events of 2000? Did you get on a plane and leave Fiji when the 2000 coup happened?
Absolutely not. And they know that. They know that I was there, right there, leading the protest against the coup in 2000 and the events of 2000. And they know that I know who was the commander of the military forces in 2000. I know what happened in Moniveni. I know what happened in Tuketi. I know how what was happening. I know that I was there to speak to radio stations, to television stations, and to make presentations. There was a Commonwealth ministerial team that visited Fiji, while the government was held hostage. And I, at that time, on behalf of the National Federation Party at Boran House, went and made a strong case of intervention by international community to save the government and to save democracy. So I was there, right there at the forefront. Never left this country.
All right. What about 2006 Bainimarama led coup? Did you leave Fiji on a plane then?
Again, not Sashi. I was there. I know. I mean, and I can reveal this to you. There were approaches made to me, not only during 2006 coup, but after 2006 coup and after the formation of the interim government. But I, as a matter of principle, I maintained my stand. I did not want to support those who came into power through the barrel of the gun. So my stand for democracy was always very clear. I fought for it. I stand for it. I'm still there. Unlike some people, he should ask his de facto prime minister. Frank Bainimarama should ask his de facto prime minister, Ayaz Sayed Qayyum. Why did he leave after 87? I think he left after 88. Did he desert his friends, who were fighting for democracy? He should go and ask him, not me. I didn't run away. I'm not going to run away. I'm going to stay here and die here in this country. This is my home.
Well said. And talking of reasons why Qayyum may have left, if only he appeared on this program, I could ask him a lot more questions about a lot more things. But that's a story for another day. Now, Professor Biman, sorry, I beg your pardon?
I said you should invite him again.
I've given up. I've invited him more than sufficient times. Look, under the preamble of the 2013 Constitution that was imposed on the people of Fiji, I must add, it clearly states that we are all Fijians united by common and equal citizenry. Now, when Bainimarama calls you an Indo-Fijian, how does that make you feel? Is he being a racist? Is he really showing his class?
Well, the people of Fiji, Sashi, have seen the class and the true colors of this two-man government. I mean, you talked about his track record. They ran a government, a military government, under decree. Then they imposed the 2013 Constitution. Then they had the election under their own set of electoral laws. But before they got into parliament, when they knew that they had won the election in 2014, they brought a remunerations decree to set their own salaries. After they had won the election. Where in a democracy would people set their own salaries, including the prime minister? And then another track record, probably the only case of working in a bipartisan manner is when they worked with Sodelpa to raise the allowances. NFP opposed it. So this is their track record. And so people of Fiji have seen the true colors. And when Frank Bainimarama calls me a rich Indo-Fijian, or when they make these threats, it's not me. I'm not threatened by I didn't come into politics to be a coward. And the people of this country are not cowards. They're not threatened by these kind of utterances anymore. And they can now see the real colors of these two men and what they want the people of this country to go through. And they're not buying it. And that is the desperation that we will see. And you can expect, Sashi, in the next 2 weeks, there will be all kinds of threats. They're using all kinds of government resources. There are fakers out there They will create all kinds of fear. Remember, their supporters created fake news in the last election. They said, "Oh, the next government will take away Diwali." They are threatening people with taking away social welfare, taking away benefits that people are getting. These are the threats they are making, and they will create. So you can see much more gutter level threats and fear mongering in the next 2 weeks. And I want to warn the people of this country. I want to warn our supporters and all those who desire change that you will see more threats, you will see more fake news, you will see people going out in the community, on behalf of these people, creating fear. I've already heard, oh, there'll be a Golingoli bill. All sorts of things are being. So it's starting from these two men, and it's filtering, and their minions and their supporters and their candidates are going out there in the public and also making these threats quietly. And we know that. We know that. And our people are telling us.
Well, that is the dirty side of politics as polling day comes closer. Everything but the kitchen sink is going to be thrown at all the opposition parties. Now, what I'd like to do at this point in time, Professor Biman, is to talk about some critical programs that need to come into the governance of the country. And I'd like to begin. In the last 3 weeks, I've dealt with manifestos of the Unity Fiji Party, the Sodelpa Party, and last weekend we spoke with the leader of the Labour Party about their manifesto. I understand that your party's manifesto is yet to be released. However, let me now raise some points with you as we head to the elections. Firstly, what is the vision that the National Federation Party has for Fiji? Perhaps if I could say a vision for a better Fiji.
Shashi, the National Federation Party's vision of Fiji is a country where our people can work together, live well, and enjoy their lives. Our vision for the people of this country is where we practice democracy and respect each other's human rights, because that is the best way to live. To celebrate diversity and different cultures, to work together to create, good living standards for all through sensible economic policies and development and diversification. That we are supported by our government and we work together for the important things like health, education, our economic opportunities, our elders, our families, our cultural and spiritual lives, and our communities and personal friendships. That's the vision that the National Federation Party has for this country. And that is the vision that we will articulate through our policies. And I'm sure we'll be talking about some of those things.
All right. Now, how would you analyze where we are today in terms of the leadership that we have had for the last 16 years, the style of government that we have inherited in the last 16 years, and the state of affairs in the country as it exists today? Is it really as bad as some experts say?
Sashi, that's a very intelligent and a very fitting question, because before we talk about what we're going to do, I think it is important for us to know where we are. And in fact, in our campaign speeches and in our campaign meetings, Sashi, this is exactly what we do. We first of all lay to the people as to where we are. And then we articulate where we want to go. So let me just very briefly, there's so many things that we can talk about where we are, but I'll just summarize some of the main points. We are a nation of hard-working, resourceful people. Our country is blessed with, a lot of resources, fertile soil, tropical weather. We are a country of not only resourceful people, but full of resources, and we can create a prosperous, successful, and happy country, in our own way. But what we have seen, what we have today, is a result of poor leadership, self-serving, chaotic government that we have seen in the last 16 years. So, as a result of that, as a result of the current, two men, or I should say, two tied men government, we have had a worst economic scenario. We have a crippling debt burden on us. That's the first thing. In fact, even before COVID, Ayaz, is going around the country and saying, "Oh, we piled up debt because of COVID." No. Yes, during COVID, we had to borrow more. We got support from Australia and New Zealand in terms of direct budget support, but we borrowed more. We're still borrowing. But our economy was in a contractionary mode even before COVID in 2019. The government had run out of money, run out of ideas before COVID. And so when the COVID pandemic hit us, we didn't know what to do. If it was not for our partners, we would have been in a dire state. If it were not for the remittances from people like yourselves, who are living outside of this country, and I want to thank all of them. We received $1.5 billion in 2020 and 21 in remittances. State of the sugar industry. When Frank Bainimarama did the coup in 2006, we were producing about 3.1, 3.2 million tons of sugarcane. Today, that industry has become a pocket-sized industry, to 1.4, 1.5 million tons of cane. Our health services is in a state of disrepair. Our education system, the quality and the way in which it is being done is gone. Technical education. You can talk about infrastructure. You can talk about the agriculture sector. So the track record of Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum is this, and we can continue to talk about this. So this is where we are, Sashi, with this two-man rule. 16 years of boastfulness, from these two people about what they have done. So now we know, and the people of this country know where we are. And now they are looking at what we can offer, how we can get out of this mess. And that's why the partnership that we have created and the vision that, as I've articulated before, that we are sharing with the people is a real alternative for this country.
All right. You've just summarized maybe the ills of the Fiji First government in a very concise manner. Let me now ask you, what is your vision for a truly democratic government in Fiji? What differences will you bring into governance in Fiji if you do get to form the next government?
The first thing, Sashi, is that we will respect the people and follow our own laws. That's the first thing we will do. We will give power to the people at all levels. You know what this government has done in the last 16 years, Sashi? Apart from the election for parliamentarians under this constitution, every other elected body, right from the advisory councils to Tikina councils to sugarcane growers council, and more importantly, the local government. Imagine, if government in Australia and New South Wales started appointing all the councillors in different towns and cities and said, we will tell you how to manage your own urban areas. This is what these people have done. And so what we will do is we will give back that power to the people in probably in the first 6 months as a matter of agency. We have talked about this. We have called on this government in the last 8 years to do that. We will protect human rights. We will protect the environment. We will give confidence to foreign and local investors. And in that way, we can consult widely and listen to the people. That would be the fundamental basis of creating a democratic government. But more importantly, Sashi, very different to what this government has done, we will listen to the critics. Very fundamental. We will listen to the critics. and we will try and work with the opponents. When we get into parliament, and if these bunch are sitting in the opposition, let me say this to them: we will work with them to resolve national issues, because for us it's not about who's sitting in the opposition. The parliament is the supreme lawmaking body, and you have to respect everyone who is sitting there, and the next government will do that. So that is how we're going to create a better democratic government, and a government that operates in partnership with the people.
All right. Let me talk about economy now. The success of any country is dependent on the economy of the country being in a very strong marketplace. It has to be a diverse type of economy. For the last 16 years, we've had a so-called economic expert trying to lead Fiji, whom I'm advised has never studied economics. On the other hand, you are a professor of economics. What is the National Federation Party plan to have a stronger and more diverse economy for Fiji? Is it possible to achieve a stronger economy?
Absolutely, Sashi. You summarized the question in a very intelligent way. Thank you for that. What we've seen in this country in the last 16 years is failed economic policies. Economic policies which have been dictated by a small cabal of friends and business who support these two men rule, and the Fiji First Party. And so what has happened is that there's never been, that kind of national consultation, through an economic summit, through getting people, the business, the workers, the people in agriculture. And so what has happened is that the economic policies have been hijacked, and somehow there's been an over reliance and a focus on the tourism industry. No one is saying that we must not focus on tourism industry. The tourism industry in this country was long built before this bunch came into power. They're talking about Denarau. Look at some of the major infrastructure, hotel infrastructure. Tourism just didn't come overnight just because Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum were leading the nation. But what they've done is they put an overwhelming focus on tourism, and what we saw happen after COVID. Then there was, for a brief moment, realization, hey, we need to diversify our economy, as you said quite rightly, Sachi. Because if you don't have a diversified economy, and our geographical position, our resources, our ability to trade with our international partners tells us that having a diversified economy would create more sustainability, would give us a better chance for a holistic economic growth, and one that will be inclusive economic growth, that will include agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, supply chain routes, packaging centers, business processing centers. These are different sectors of the economy that needs to be looked at. Unfortunately, this has not happened, and the business environment that they have created over the last so many years, and until the World Bank ease of doing business thing was abolished, all the ranking that we got before that showed that Fiji was not the best place to do business. I mean, we were continuously ranked downwards. So the investor confidence. So what we're going to do, Sashi, the next government, we have promised that in the first 100 days, we will have a national economic summit. We will bring stakeholders. We know what we would like to do, but we would like to consult the stakeholders so that we create a sustainable set of economic policies which are effective, efficient, and better organized. Whether it's to do with agriculture, whether we're talking about value adding, whether we're talking about creating an environment in the northern division so that we can start non-sugar crop, production. These are ideas that we have articulated, not only in Parliament but outside of Parliament. And I could go through once we release our vision document and our policies. Probably the coming Friday, Shashi, we would be able to provide more specific details. I don't think we have time to go through each and every aspect of the policies that we'll pursue. But what people can expect is a set of good policies arrived through consultation, arrived through discussion, with confidence, with everyone, including the business sector, so that we can create a sustainable economic growth in this country that people will benefit from.
All right. Let me break it down to specifics. I know
Yeah.
there's so much that you want to talk about, but if we can just control ourselves to address specifics, and I will
Sure.
give you an opportunity at the end. If I haven't asked you a specific questions,
Sure.
I'll give you an opportunity at the end to make a statement. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have in Fiji that is affecting the country is poverty. Some have put poverty as high as 50% at that rate. Does the National Federation Party have a plan to reduce poverty in Fiji? I mean, I believe this is one of the big election issues. What are your plans, sir?
Sashi, our vision is to reduce poverty to negligible levels. And as I said, before we say how we're going to do that, we need to tell the people, we need to understand where we are. We have a situation in this country where the poverty level, the initial report that came out from the Bureau of Statistics, showed that our poverty level had increased. That report was subsequently changed by the World Bank, when we were told that it's down to 24%. Of course, we had this saga of the chief of the Bureau of Statistics being sacked because he provided ethnic data where it said that 75% of those who are poor come from the iTaukei community. And that statistics should not have been rubbished. It's important for us to understand we have different communities in this country. We have different consumption patterns, and so having some sort of ethnic data on the kind of poverty is important so that we can devise policies. We can target areas where, whether it's regional or non-regional focus, we can do that. But the most important thing, Sashi, that we will do to reduce poverty or to attack poverty directly is to partner with NGOs, faith-based organizations, because some of these organizations, NGOs, like FRIEND, for example, you'll be talking to Sashi, faith-based organizations, they know better where the vulnerable families are, where the poverty is having the most devastating impact on our people. And this government has not worked with communities to deal directly with the issue of poverty. In terms of policies, poverty, Sashi, is linked to the cost of living. Poverty is linked to lack of jobs. Poverty is linked to lack of infrastructure. Poverty is linked to lack of adequate health services in the rural areas. And so, poverty will have to be targeted in a multifaceted manner. So the first thing we will look at is how we can work together, how we can empower these NGOs, organizations which can deal directly, how the government can provide resources and work with them to deal with the most vulnerable. Then our next step would be to ensure that we create policies where we can raise minimum wages, for example. Because if you're not raising minimum wages, living wage, and the cost of living is going up, people will fall into poverty. So before COVID, when that report came out, it said that 15 to 20% of the people out of the 29 that were already 28% already in poverty, 15 to 20%, Sashi, were on the margins of poverty. In other words, they could go up or fall below the poverty line. After COVID, all of them, in our view, would have fallen into poverty because they were on the margins. Loss of jobs, loss of income, cost of living. So we were looking at almost like 50% of the people going below the poverty line. How many of them have come out of that after COVID? We don't know. So we will have to look at all those very, very carefully. The first thing we will do is to try and bring the cost of living down. And there are ways of doing it. In 2018, Sashi, let me just say this, if you don't mind. In 2018, we knew then that the cost of living was not commensurate with the level of income that people had. And we suggested in 2018 that the minimum living wage should be progressively increased to $5. And what Ayaz did, and the Fiji First Party, they went bisek. They went around the country. They went into garment factories. They collected women workers and threatened them that if Biman comes into government, if your minimum wages will go up, you lose jobs. And now, after COVID, they're talking about the same thing. They said, "Oh, we have to now raise minimum wages." They're talking about $4 in January after the election. When I said reduce VAT on basic food items, they went bisek. They said, "Oh, Biman is going to pile up debt. Where is he going to get the money?" And when the COVID pandemic hit us, they copied my policy with the same list. They didn't even change the order of the items that I had listed in my manifesto. So we have, Shashi, issued over the last 8 years, and we have a track record of offering credible policies. If they'd listened to us, we would not have been in this situation. And you're right. I know, and the NFP knows, and our people in the PA know that we have the skills. We know where the flesh points are, where the nuts and bolts are to fix this issue of poverty. And our vision, as I said, is to bring the employers, the workers, everyone together so that we can have a sustainable living wage, so that we can all work together and reduce poverty to negligible levels. That's our vision. Reduce poverty to negligible levels. That's the operative word.
Well, that is a great, great vision to have, and certainly one that is going to augur well for the country if you can achieve that. Now, when one talks about having a robust economy, one talks about reducing poverty levels, one must realize that this will only be possible if the business community feels confident with the government of the day. Now, what assurance can you give to the business community, Professor Biman, about doing business in Fiji without fear of reprisals, without government interference, and without all the bloody red tape that comes with it?
Very important question, Shashi, and thank you for asking that. Let me assure the business community, categorically assure the business community, then the next government is going to work in partnership with all of them. We will secure, our vision is for a robust and a secure business environment. And let me just read some of the elements of our vision of a robust and a secure business environment. We've been saying that, and I want to say we will consult the business community continuously year round, through annual economic summits, and have a permanent secretariat, Sashi, permanent secretariat for consultation with the business community. We will reduce government interference and bullying. We will abolish, pointless laws that exist today to reduce restrictions and red tape. We will have changes in tax and fiscal measures, but we will be announcing it well before through consultation. There will be no surprises. The business community would know that what this government is about will be transparent and open. We will not bring laws under Order 51 and suddenly say, we're going to change this tomorrow and force it through without consultation. Laws on employment, tax, customs, FNPF, company regulation, we will try and simplify this. We will get businesses to collaborate with universities. I know right now one of the biggest problem that we're going to face in this country, already facing now, is a shortage of labor. They're saying, oh, people are going to greener pastures. No, some of it is greener pastures, but a lot of young people, Sachi, are leaving this country, leaving good jobs because they don't have confidence in this country. They don't have confidence in the health system, in the education system. I have, I have, nieces and nephews, who've got good jobs between them. They're leaving. They want to leave because they're saying, "Oh, our health system is no good." So we are going to create that partnership, that business environment, other social infrastructure, so that people can come, people can stay, live well, work well, and create business in the way that would be helpful. So those are some of the elements of my vision of a robust and secure business environment. In the first 100 days, as I said, we will have an, an economic summit which will lay down the agenda of the new government so that every business community, and there will be no fear, there will be no threats. I know, Sachi, right now, is actually quite funny how business people behave with the opposition. They are so afraid of being victimized. They tell me, Professor, if I am seen with you, next thing I'll get is, FRCAs or some other, agency, trying to say why I'm talking to the opposition. This is all that will be gone. None of that will exist under our government. People will be free, business will be free. And I say to the business people, wait for the new government. You will see a difference. You will see the confidence. You will see the partnership. You will see the consultation. We will be open to your criticism. That will be our vision to create a robust, secure business environment.
Well, that is something to look forward to in terms of the business sector. Your plans to have an economic summit is certainly going to augur well because it will bring like minded people onto one platform to discuss the best road for recovery, to discuss the best foot forward for the sake of the country. So that is something which is very commendable, Professor Biman. Now, you mentioned the education system. You gave examples of your nieces and nephews, for example. Under the Fiji First government, we have had so many issues with students, teachers, and the future of our children. Firstly, what can you say about implementing plans for a better education system? I'm sure teachers are waiting for some good news on that.
First point, Sashi, a more general point, and this is our track record. Unlike people who talk about track record, we've been saying since 2014. When we got into Parliament, I said to Mahendra Reddy, who was Education Minister at that time, I said, "Good luck. You can create something which would be quite different. Set up an education commission." The last one was in 2000. Find out what has happened in the last so many years. Let's provide a good set of plans and policies to. He came to Parliament and announced it in his maiden speech, and that was the end of it, because somebody went and told him that that was the NFP policy or NFP manifesto had talked about education commission. So we never saw, and since then we have seen all kinds of haphazard promises, this, that, reforms, and nothing has worked. So what we're going to do, Sashi, is to set up an independent, National Education Council. We will set up an education commission, a group of experts who would analyze what has happened. We want the education system to rest on some fundamental pillars and principles. The first one, of course, is the teaching and learning in schools. We know how frustrated teachers in this country are. Every teacher, who goes to the school in the morning. I am a president of a primary school, which has about 1,000 students. I talk to teachers. I talk to students. We have teachers teaching 45 to 50 students in a small classroom. the quality of teaching and learning, is so poor. It's so difficult because this government has neglected the staff-student ratios and what the teachers can do. So first of all, what we will do is give employment security to teachers. There would be no contract system. We will go back to what was there before. Every teacher who comes into teaching profession would know that it's a permanent job. It's a job that they can look forward to. It's a job that can be rewarding for them and for their students. So that is what we had promised in the last election. That is what we are promising the teachers that the next government will do. So then we will look at transforming our technical education. One of the disastrous things that this government did, Shashi, and that is why today employers are complaining about lack of technical skills. Of course, our people are leaving, but they were leaving before. But we were training enough people to provide for those shortages. We had some very good technical programs in our schools. What this government did, they said, oh, we'll stop all that and create technical colleges. I warned them in parliament that it will be a disaster. And lo and behold, it ended up as a disaster. Suddenly they had invested, I don't know, close to, I'm told, $20 million. I stand to be corrected on that. To set up technical colleges, everything collapsed. They sent it to FNU, it collapsed there as well. All the investment that they made is lying. There is no focused technical education. Then comes Ayaz Sayed Qayyum and Frank Bainimarama trying to destroy the University of the South Pacific. So we are going to reform the relationship with tertiary institutions, including USP. We're going to respect the governance structure of the universities. Provide universities with independence, with resources. Support them in a partnership so that they can create the best graduates, best skills that can come out. So our vision for the education system is going to be one of quality, of partnership, of working together.
All right. You mentioned the USP. Let's turn our attention to that. By any account, this is a disaster, and this has been the making of the Fiji First government. How, or rather, what steps would you take as an incoming government to fix the relationship with the University of the South Pacific?
Very good question, Sashi. First thing we will do is to apologize to our regional partners, because what the Fiji First government has done, what Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum have done, is shown disrespect, total disrespect and arrogance to the long-held partnership that Fiji has had with all the regional countries as far as the University of the South Pacific is concerned. All previous Fiji governments respected the governance structure of the university, the council, which has ministers, which has leaders, presidents sitting in there. That council made certain decisions with respect to Pal Alwalia as vice chancellor. They did all the investigation and they said this man must remain vice chancellor. And what these two men do? They don't like that. So because they don't like that, they hold the grants to the university. They are punishing our parents, our students, and everyone involved in the university. USP has been one of the most successful regional stories, in the history of regionalism, Sashi, in this part of the world. And yet, these two people have ignored that. They have no basis, absolutely no basis to hold the grant to the university. And in fact, the grant was approved by Parliament. The ones that they held earlier was approved by Parliament. When a budget is passed, it's a law. So they didn't even respect the decision of the Parliament, which allocated grants to the university. So what we will do is to apologize to the region. We will transform our relationship with the region in terms of respecting the decision of the council, and we will make sure that Fiji remains an important partner of the University of the South Pacific, because what has happened, and the staff and students and parents in Fiji know, they know what this government has done to their children, to them, the lecturers, the professors, they know that this government, in its arrogance and feeding into somebody's ego because they couldn't get their way into the council, because they didn't like Pal Alwalia having pictures with some opposition politicians, because some gossip mongers from the university and those who were implicated in the BDO report, some of them have got jobs in government now, went and told these two men that there was all this thing happening, or that they were against. This is the basis on which they made the decision, on hearsay, and accuse a very honest, highly accomplished professor, widely acclaimed internationally, administrator, who was the vice chancellor, who was appointed through international search and process. They deported him in a Gestapo-like operation in midnight, him and his wife. And fortunately, Samoa has hosted them. Fortunately for us and for the region and for the university and the students, other countries stood their ground and did the right thing. And we salute them. We salute the students and staff of the university for standing up to these bullies. And I'm sure that they are also waiting for a change of government, which will restore faith and the relationship that always existed, so that we can have quality tertiary education, not only in Fiji, but also in the region as well.
All right, take a little break, Professor Biman Prasad. Have a drink of water if you need to. We'll come back and talk about the health system of Fiji. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Our chief guest this afternoon is Professor Biman Prasad, leader of the National Federation Party. Immediately following this interview, we will also speak to National Federation Party candidate Ms. Sashi Kiran about her entry into the political arena. And I request that you keep your comments sane. Please do not resort to profanity, swearing, or anything that is defamatory in nature. And people who do not subscribe to the rules of engagement on SSTP, your posts will be deleted and you may be blocked from taking any further part in this program. I'd like you to be part of this program. Please respect our rules and regulations. Professor Biman Prasad, as you know, here on SSTP, we have regularly raised Fiji's health system as a major concern. Pray do tell me, what is the National Federation Party vision for a better health system for Fiji? This definitely, surely, must be a top priority for any incoming government.
Thank you, Sashi. Let me state this quite categorically and openly to the people of Fiji. Our vision is for a world-class health system. That's our vision, a world-class health system, because what we have seen over the last 16 years is the deterioration in the delivery of the health services to an extent where never in the history of this country we've had such disastrous health services. So we are starting from there, but our vision is a world-class health system. A system where we can meet the basic needs of our people. Where we can distribute basic medications, where government supports community organizations, discipline forces, sporting bodies to lead the people in promoting good health and nutrition. and an active lifestyle, so that people understand a vision where preventive healthcare, health practices are well resourced. We used to have such a well-defined public health system, Sashi. When we were growing up in the 70s, I remember, public health officials, nurses, on a regular, period of time visiting schools, uh, you know, dental hygiene, public health. These were like preventive, well-resourced health delivery services in the 70s and 80s. So we are going to provide the preventive medicine and healthy practices which are well resourced. We will encourage investment in private, uh, for profit healthcare infrastructure for medical tourism. I mean, we in the last 16 years we've heard about it, but we've never had that. We have a vision where we respect and support our doctors and nurses and other medical professionals and provide them with the opportunity to help us, and ensure that we consult with them with to design appropriate laws and policies. And above all, our vision is to have a national health insurance scheme supported by the people's money, the workers' money, the FNPF, so that we can have good medical care. That is our vision for a world-class health system in Fiji, Sachi.
Okay. Really, some great policies in place, some great thoughts going into what can become of Fiji. Now, I want to raise the next question that I want to raise with you. Elections at the best of time brings out a lot of untruths and misinformation in the public domain. There are widespread rumors circulating, especially amongst people living in the rural areas, that a new People's Alliance and National Federation Party government will remove benefits such as social welfare, free schooling, free bus fares, etc. What is the truth in regards to these provisions?
That's the biggest lie, Sashi, the biggest fear mongering that we see from the supporters and the leaders of the Fiji First Party. You know, I can't imagine for the life of me that these people would go and create this fear. Uh, you know, uh, uh, One elderly person met me in a campaign meeting, Sachi, and said, "Son, are you going to take away my social welfare?" And so I said, "Who told you, sir?" He said, "This is the rumor." Who is spreading this rumor? It's it's these people who want to stay in power. But let me assure the people of this country, everyone who's watching this program, and our friends overseas, no sensible government. You think Rambuka and I are that crazy? You think these guys think that we don't understand what the people need? In fact, we are going to, Sashi, review, because I know that the cost of living has been rising. It's up there, and the social welfare is here. The gap is just big and big. And so any sensible government would review these benefits. They're spreading these lies. Oh, your social welfare will be taken away, your bus fare will be taken away, your free education will end. All these rumors are being spread to ordinary people. But let me just make this point. When they say, oh, in some places they say, oh, when Rambuka comes back in power, he'll take away. I mean, Rambuka is not that stupid. If you look at the ethnic profile, as per the population, Sashi, this is a fact. A large majority of the recipients of social welfare, by sheer numbers, by sheer population, are our iTaukei community. Large percentage of our students with sheer population profile, are iTaukei students. Will Mr. Rambuka, if he comes into government, if we are in government, is he going to reduce social welfare? Is he going to reduce, take away bus fare benefits that our ordinary people are getting? So this is an absolute lie. And I know, Shashi, I know, and I want to tell the people of this country that they will continue to lie right up to the day of the election. And they will use this during the blackout as well. Their supporters, the fakers, they're going to create these lies like they created last time during the blackout. They said, "Oh, Diwali will be taken away." This is what they are doing. But let me just say this: I have confidence in the people. I trust the people. People have the wisdom to see through these lies, and no one out there would believe these lies. But I just want to warn the people: these 2 weeks until the election, they can hear more lies, and more lies about the benefits being taken away by the next government. It's an absolute lie. Never believe those lies. And we assure you that the next government will review these benefits to ensure that they are made adequate. Because we know that some of it is not. But when we come in, we have to look at what's there, and how we can deal with it.
All right, we've been going for just over 2 hours now. I have still a number of questions left to ask of you. So I'd like you to start addressing things that you will do rather than what's been happening for the last 16 years. Now, in most countries, Professor Biman, the government of the day is expected to and must have a plan to look after the elderly, the vulnerable, people with disabilities, etc. They simply cannot be left behind. Please do tell me that if you form government, you have a plan in place for people that are vulnerable in society.
Definitely, Sashi, we have a vision to improve the status of our elderly people. I was just told 2 days ago that the home for care for the elderly in Lotoka, there was only one. I was told by someone, I don't know how far that's true, that is being closed. And so we are going to work with communities, faith-based organizations, NGOs, to ensure that aged care facilities exist in every district. That is our vision. That is our overwhelming aim, and that is what we will try and do when we get into government.
All right. Now, women play such an important role in our society. I have fully supported the empowerment of women. What plans does the National Federation Party have to support our vulnerable women and to generally empower the women of Fiji?
Very good question, Shashi. We understand, and I want to salute all those NGOs, women's groups. People like Shamima Ali, people like Nalini Singh, people like Suzy Nesara, and then many others. Shashi Kiran, who you're going to talk after me. These are brave warriors, fighters, for gender equality, for the empowerment of women, to improve their economic, status. I've been involved myself, Sashi, in looking at the economics of domestic violence, and how it's not just a cost on families and women, and how it disempowers them, but also the cost to the nation of domestic violence, in terms of what happens. So we are going to, our vision would be to work very closely we are not going to be attacking these organizations. Unlike this government, we're going to work with these organizations in a very clear, close manner. We will look at how government can support, through resources, appropriate resources, so that these organizations who know what needs to be done can support it. Plus, government's own economic policies, government's own, civil service policies, our own attempt to get as many women as possible in the party to get elected into parliament, so that they can steer, you know, these issues on behalf of the women of this country. We know that more than 50% of students in universities today are women, are girls, and any country which doesn't look at equality, in terms of employment, in terms of pay, in terms of wages, salaries, in terms of preventing domestic violence, is not going to achieve sustainable economic development. And all studies show wherever countries which have empowered women, through active policies like I have suggested and in consultation, actually do better economically, socially, and politically.
All right. Now, the Fiji First government has been responsible for the demise of workers' rights in the country. They have removed the consultative approach and have been very heavy handed where they have banned gatherings, protests, and to a large degree have curtailed union activities in Fiji. There have been anti worker legislations brought through in Parliament in the last 16 years. There have been unfair dismissals of employees, such as the ATS and the Fiji Airways workers. My question to you is this: what plans does the NFP have to bring about a more inclusive and consultative employment relations policy in Fiji?
Shashi, if I just quickly read, in fact, I've got 22 things that the next
Wow.
government will do. We have given this undertaking to the Fiji Trade Union Congress Council. We've been invited, both Mr. Rambuka and I have been invited by the union movement to tell them what exactly we're going to do. And we understand the pain and the suffering that the union movement and the workers of this country have gone through over the last 16 years. So let me just read some of those very quickly. I won't read all the 22, but just some of them. First thing is we will hold a workers, employers, and government summit.
Hold on for a moment, please, Professor
Yeah.
Biman. Workers of Fiji,
Yeah.
perhaps if you have been distracted throughout the interview, this is, I believe, where you should stop and listen
Yeah.
to what is being said here. Because let's face it, workers of Fiji have been battered left, right, and center for far too long. Professor Biman, the floor is yours. Make those important points, please.
Yeah. First of all, a national summit of workers, employers, and government, to ensure that we work together. So you may ask what we will do when we are in government. Number one, amend legislation to allow for right to strike and picket, because I know FTUC has been applying for permit to march, to strike. It's not been given. Number two, strengthen collective bargaining for all workers. Number three, legislate right to assembly, free speech, and protest. Remove contract employment. Increase civil service retirement age to 60. Remove retirement age for municipal workers like other workers. Restore essential services to ILO standards, which means only a few industries are legislated as previously instead of all. Increase grievance reporting time for essential workers. Allow individual and collective grievance reporting. Improve dispute settlement process, including tribunals. Empower tribunals and courts to settle all disputes. Facilitate and host, as I've said before, annual summit. Implement and adhere to genuine tripartism and facilitate within the tripartite forum wages and fixing guidelines which has not been working in this country. Legislate. We will legislate an annual minimum wage review with a view to achieving a living wage, Sashi. Let me explain quickly living wage. Living wage, when we talk about living wage, it means whether the wage you are getting or salaries you are getting is commensurate with the cost of living, because that's what we call a living wage. Put a stop to exploitation of workers by publicly funded contractors. Complete all labor law reviews within the first year of government. Review FNPF structure by amending FNPF Decree Act, including governance to restore workers' say in funds that are 100% owned by them, and restoration of a contribution of 8% for employee and 10% for employers as soon as we get into government. Restoration of pension scheme and contractual obligation to give security and comfort to retirees. And we will be revisiting the 1% employee contribution for a medical scheme to be shifted into pension fund if not used. And 22, using tripartism and other forums for consultation with workers' representatives for consultation process. We believe that these 22 actions by the next government, Sashi, will bring together the workers, the government, and the employers, and create not only a harmonious working industrial relations environment, but also provide certainty, provide a clear path and an accountable and transparent and open process for a good relationship, so that we can drive the economy, drive economic policies in a sustainable manner. And that is one thing that has not happened in the last 16 years. We've had governments in the past. Unions are not led by thugs. This government thinks that somehow these union leaders are some kind of thugs that they're going to disrupt. We've had union leaders, responsible union leaders in the past, who work together with employers, work together with government. They're not fools. They're looking after the interest of workers. And if I may say, Sashi, IMF, International Monetary Fund, in a study shows that wherever workers' rights have been diluted, workers' rights have been taken away, it has been bad for the economy. In fact, it has led to increase in poverty. It has increased the level of distress amongst the workers and the relationship that they have with employers, and it has affected productivity. So what we are proposing, the next government, what we are proposing is going to be good for the business, good for the government, good for the workers, good for the country.
Three things I've taken out from that, your 22-point structure. One, very quick yes or no. You will increase the retirement age to 60, you said?
Exactly.
Unions will be allowed to protest, to march if they needed to?
Exactly.
And workers' fundamental basic rights will be restored in the country.
On the spot, Sashi.
All right. Well, there you go. Let me now talk about our iTaukei community. One of the key matters that must be tackled by any incoming government is to ensure that the iTaukei issues are dealt with a degree of respect, a degree of fair play, and above all, with consultations with the representatives of the iTaukei community. What vision does the National Federation Party have to look after iTaukei administration, Professor Biman?
Shashi, we've had a very clear understanding and a very clear policy, since 2014, and we have articulated this in our manifesto in 2014 and 2018. And we have a vision where the next government will carefully consult and listen to the indigenous community and leadership of the iTaukei community. And it will be a government which will let those consultation, that process, decide what is best for our iTaukei community in terms of their culture, in terms of their tradition, in terms of the iTaukei administration. This government, Baini Marama is going around the country and saying that, Biman Prasad, is holding Rambuka's pens because he's supporting, they want to bring the GCC back. They imposed a constitution which doesn't include the GCC as opposed to the 1997 constitution. But we have a Ministry of iTaukei Affairs funded by the taxpayers of this country. And Baini Marama and Syed Qayyum want to control that. They want to control the Tikina councils. They want to control the Turanga Nikoros. And what we are saying is that we will provide this consultation process, on matters relating to our indigenous community. So that will be a fundamental, difference to what these people have done in government. Of course, we have said very clearly, and we will, I say this again, that we will repeal Bill 17 or Act, the iTaukei Land Trust Act Amendment Act of 2021, which was forced through Understanding Order 1, for which we were taken in by the police. I was taken in by the police 4 times for opposing a bill that was in front of Parliament. I want to say to the people of this country that when we come into government, we will repeal that act because it was not brought through appropriate consultation. That's a clear example of what we will do, because we believe that Bill 17 was rushed through without proper consultation.
All right. One of your candidates in the NFP is Dr. John Fathiaki. He is a proud Rotuman. For far too long, many Rotumans believe that they have been treated as a stepchild of Fiji. What plans does your party have for Rotumans in Fiji and for Rotuma?
Well, let me just read our vision for Rotuma and the Rotuman community. In fact, Sashi, you are absolutely right. We are so lucky. The people of this country are so lucky that somebody of the caliber of Dr. John Fathiaki, a good friend of mine, somebody who is an absolute gem, somebody who would be a great asset to this country in Parliament and in government. And obviously, he is an absolutely respected member of the Rotuman community in Fiji. And our vision for Rotuma and the Rotuman community in Fiji is to begin a new round of consultations with the Rotuman community on their administration and laws. We do not support the changes in the current proposed Rotuma bill, because we believe that we need proper consultation. We have to work with the Rotuman community. And Dr. John Fathiaki is a national treasure in many ways, because not only he understands the aspirations of the Rotuman community in Fiji, but he understands the aspirations of the people of this country. He understands what should be the vision for our health system. And Sachi, you have spoken to him. What a wonderful articulation of his views on the kind of health system that we need in this country and what has happened in the last 16 years. So we are so happy to have him, and and I want to assure the Rotuman community that our vision is to begin a new round of consultation with the Rotuman community on the administration and laws, and we do not support the changes in the current proposed Rotuma bill.
Well said. Professor Biman, let's turn our attention to the sugar industry. Do you think the Fiji First government has abrogated its responsibilities to the sugarcane farmers of the country?
Absolutely, Sashi. The word abrogated its responsibility is apt description of how the Fiji First party and the previous military government led by Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qiyum have destroyed the sugar industry. They have no idea. They have no idea what to do with the sugar industry. In fact, they have done everything possible to destroy it. So the first thing we will do, Sashi, the first thing they did is they destroyed the structure. They destroyed the partnership by removing the elected Sugarcane Growers Council. So the first thing we will do is return to an elected Sugarcane Growers Council that is accountable to the farmers. These bunch, what they did, they abolished the Sugarcane Growers Council. They appointed their own people. The Sugarcane Growers Council, right now, in our view, does not work in the interest of the sugarcane farmers. So the first thing we will do is to restore an elected Sugarcane Growers Council. Second thing, Sashi, we will do is hold annual sugar summits to listen to the concerns of farmers, land owners, Fiji Sugar Corporation, field, transport, meal workers, the stakeholders in the industry to map out a strategy for a modernized, efficient sugar industry. Let me just say this. After Cyclone Winston, when Reki mill, this historical mill, got destroyed, they could have fixed it. Engineers were telling us at that time that if government had spent $5 to $10 million, some people say it could have been fixed in $5 million. They destroyed it. So they're not interested. These people were not interested in creating a modern, efficient sugar industry. That's why they did all that. So we are going to change all that, the structure of the industry. Plus, we are going to ensure that we protect the homes and lives of farming families. And I want to say this, and I want to read this. We are saying that we have a vision that protects the homes and lives of farming families. So, one, if they wish to continue to farm cane, they are supported to improve efficiency. If they wish to leave farming, the leases are redesigned to keep them in their family homes. If they wish to do different farming, they are supported in the transition. We had suggested, creating a national master lease for farming lands to guarantee returns to landowners for farming land and to eliminate conflict and ill will over, unpaid rents. These are ideas that we had before. Sashi, let me say this. Our track record, because Frank Bainimarama likes to talk about track records. We suggested, because we believe that the farmers' livelihoods have to improve, the incomes have to improve. And we did the assessment and we said in 2014 that a minimum guaranteed price should be $85. When we said that in our manifesto in 2014, they went around the country and said, Biman is doing this because he won Indo-Fijian votes. This is what they were saying. Then in 2018, when we assessed that the farmers needed a guaranteed price of about $100, again, they went around the country and said, but then just before the election, they increased the guaranteed price to $85. And they can't even pay that full amount even now. I know some parties have offered, things like $102 or whatever, guaranteed. We are not putting a figure at the moment. But what we are saying is that when we come into government, we want to reassess. We want to look at what's happening to the cost, because the cost of inputs would be much higher. We want to reassess that. And we want to then establish what should be the appropriate guaranteed price, whether it should be $105 or $110 or $120. We have to do a thorough review, thorough consultation with the stakeholders. And that's our plan for the sugar industry. That's our vision for the sugar industry, as opposed to what these people have done.
Have a sip of water. I think you need a drink. And I'm just going to ask you a supplementary question on that. And I need a quick answer, because I've got another interview after this with your candidate as well. Yeah. Just briefly, is the sugar industry salvageable?
It is. It
Okay.
is, Sashi. It just needs people with vision, people with a little bit of economic sense, and the humility to work with the stakeholders. That's what was lacking in the last 16 years. And I think we have that. We will provide that when we get into government.
Wonderful. Let me now look at the executive arm. The executive arm of any government is the public service. Let me state that at this juncture, I feel for the civil servants in Fiji because they have actually worked under such trying circumstances. I mean, to have a retirement age dropped, to have career paths ruined, to be placed on contracts, etc. I mean, this has brought about a demoralized public service sector. What plans does the National Federation Party have to bring confidence in the public service, to restore a sense of pride in the public service? What are your plans?
Sashi, some of the things that I laid down in the 22 things that I read with respect to the industrial relations environment will also apply to the civil service. But
Right.
we, things like, proper disciplinary processes, tribunals, the so-called open merit system that these people have introduced. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that the Public Service Commission that used to be there, Sashi, before, actually made all the appointments to the public service and had its own discipline. What these people have done in the 2013 Constitution, the Constitutional Commission appoints a public service commissioners. Their job is to only appoint permanent secretaries, and permanent secretaries have the power to hire, fire, determine salaries in not in consultation with the minister, but with the agreement of the minister. This is in the Constitution. And so what has happened, Sashi, over the years, and especially in the last years, a complete politicization of the civil service. There is, I mean, in any country, the civil service, as you said, is a neutral arm of the government. The ministers, the politicians, their job is in parliament, make policies, the implementers independently, whoever comes and goes in government, doesn't matter, the civil service remains. That has been destroyed in this country because of what's in the Constitution and how the ministers have behaved. So in theory, the minister can determine right from an appointment of a cleaner to the deputy secretary, apart from the permanent secretary, who they want. So if they have a committee which is supposedly based on open merit system and recommends, and you are the minister, Sashi, it comes to you, these 5 names or 3 names or 2 names, and you say, look, I don't want this person who is number 1. I want the one who is number 3. The minister has to agree. That's his final, because the Constitution is very clear. It says with the agreement of the minister, not in consultation, with the agreement. So what we are going to do, apart from, of course, looking at what's in the Constitution, create a system, a process where merit and merit alone is the basis of appointment without any political interference. And we want to bring those principles of civil service that exist anywhere in the world, where the civil service is a neutral arm, where the permanent secretary can go and tell the minister, sorry, say, this budget, this is what is approved in parliament. This is not your job. This is my job. And permanent secretaries in the past actually used to go and tell the ministers.
Yes.
So all the independent, some of the institutions, like people who run Commerce Commission, which is supposed to be an independent institution. These guys going around and campaigning for Fiji First. So every institution, the civil service has to work for the Fiji First. It's like a Chinese Communist Party, where every arm of the government has to work for the party in government. In fact, Fiji First Party is worse than the Chinese Communist Party. At least they have a Congress every 5 years. Fiji First Party doesn't have. So they're not a democratic party anyway. And so they brought those principles into the civil service. Civil servants are afraid. I know that some of the ministers are using teachers. They're telling teachers, organize meetings at your place. And we know there are teachers who have been forced to organize political meetings for their masters so that they can go and campaign. This is how bad they have made the civil service, in terms of politicization. We're going to get rid of that and make sure that the civil service and the civil servants have and this is why they have this contract systems, as you saw, that it's hanging on the civil service head. If you don't listen to me, you're fired. You lose your jobs. We are going to change that so that once you have a career path in the civil service, you are an independent officer, that you don't have to be influenced by the politics. You implement government policy, budget, which is approved by parliament, by the legislature. That's how, there will be separation of powers. So that's what we will do. And we are very, very clear about it. And I want to tell all the civil servants that this is what the next government will do. We'll empower them and we'll make their life better and more meaningful.
Now, the government is still accusing you of suggesting a civil service pay cut. Is that true? I mean, I understand you had sued Fiji Sun sometime earlier. What is the reality here?
Well, Shashi, I somebody just sent me there are some briefing notes that the Fiji First candidates were given. I'm told. So somebody has sent me a copy, and in that briefing note, they are still lying. They are still lying, and it says also, despite all the calls from major Fiji First stood firm with our civil servant did not. And it says Biman wanted a 35% salary cut. This is in the briefing note for the Fiji First candidates to go around and lie. They've been instructed to go and lie about Biman Prasad that he proposed a 35% salary cut. When I said that in Parliament, I said that on Fiji Village, I had a recorded interview with a newspaper where I said after COVID that we cut salaries of Prime Minister, ministers, and people right up to the permanent secretary, director level, during COVID, not the civil service as a whole. And of course, I took that media organization to court and I got an apology. Despite that, Sashi, they're still going out there and lying that I wanted salary cut. Syed Qayyum is still lying. Gutter level campaign you see from this bunch, who are so desperate to remain in power. Let me assure you the civil service. Don't believe in the lies of Syed Qayyum and his candidates. The civil servants deserve a better deal. They deserve, permanent contracts. They deserve respect. They deserve independence, and they deserve the freedom to work for the people of this country, not for the political masters. And we are not going to be like that.
All right. Let me see how we're going for time. I'm going to cut certain questions off.
That's fine, Sashi. It's fine. You need to get Sashi on.
Yes, I need to do that. But let's face one of the biggest problems in Fiji right now is in terms of infrastructure is, of course, water and electricity supply. And fixing that has to be a top priority for any incoming government. Fiji First government has not succeeded on this front. Please tell me, how will you fix the problem? Don't tell me what they haven't done. Tell me, how will you fix the problem?
Very good question, Sashi. Our vision for infrastructure is very clear. It's going to be very transformative. We are going to ensure that we address the basic and fundamental problems. So our vision for infrastructure is one that will save our economic sectors and provide public services to our people. We are going to ensure consistent, reliable, affordable water and power with the help of international partners and investors. This is our priority. Until we fix this, we can't grow our economy. So that's our vision. What we will do is to review the current FRA structure, FRA policies, because we believe that millions of dollars of funds over the years has been wasted, and we haven't seen the outcome. So the first thing we will do when we get into government is to review the infrastructure, the policies that this government has put in place, especially for roads. Secondly, we're going to look at how we can ensure that people have water in their taps. And our policy on this would be very clear. We are not going to talk about this dream of building a highway between Suva and Nandi. We are going to direct those funding, even if it means diverting funds from non-priority areas, cutting wastages. We are going to ensure that people have water in the taps, for example. But again, Sashi, as I said, our vision for the infrastructure in this country is one which will save our economic sectors as well as our people. And we would be putting out more details when we release the vision statement on Friday. So I'm not giving everything away at this point.
So you're releasing your vision statement on Friday?
Most likely on Friday, we'll let you know.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on quickly. Let me address the debt crisis that Fiji finds itself in. The country has debts of about 10 billion, some say 12 billion. You made a categorical statement during your rally in Reki this week that every person in Fiji, every man, woman, and child, has a debt of $11,000 hanging over their head. Now, is this debt a reality, that every person in Fiji has this debt?
So the simple thing I said was, we call it per capita debt, and that's a good way to look at what is the debt burden on the country, on the people, because eventually it's the people who have to pay, through taxes, through whatever fees, fines. It's the people who have to pay. It's the economy that will have to pay. So in economic terms, when we say per capita debt, it means per person. So you look at the probable total debt, and the estimate is that we are reaching close to $10 billion debt. So if you divide $10 billion by, say, 900,000 people in our total population, it gives you about $11,000 per person. That's how you analyze the level of debt and the burden that every man, woman, or child has. If you, in theory, if it has to be paid. In fact, we are on that measure, Sashi. We are worse than Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's total debt is about 50 billion US. That's about 100 billion Fijian. The population is 22 million. You divide that by 100 billion Fijian with 22 million people, it's about 4,500 Fijian dollars. So our debt per capita per person is almost like, 2 times, more than 2 times that of Sri Lanka's per capita debt. But that's just one way to look at it. The other way to look at debt, and I've said
No, stop.
Yeah,
You've
okay.
explained it. You've explained it. So
Right.
the fact of the matter is there is a debt level of about $11,000 per person. True?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, if elected into government, how do you plan to raise revenue for the country as well as manage our debt levels? Very important question, I think, because we need to get out of this mess.
Shashi, as I said, one important thing, this is a very important question, and I'm glad you asked it, because people have asked me this in our campaign meetings. They're saying, Professor, this is a huge burden when you come into government. How are you going to deal with it? My answer is, of course, any debt that we owe will have to be paid, at some point in time. However, that time is determined. But the first thing we will do, Sashi, when we come into government, is to ensure that we cut down the wastages, because this is a government that piled up almost 7 billion in 36 years. Previous governments put together piled up $2.8 billion debt since 2006, and now it's almost like $7 billion additional debt in 16 years. And I have said this before, that in my own estimate, between 2015 and 2020, on average, my estimate is, based on the budget, based on the Auditor General's report, based on what I think has happened, on average, $500 million a year has been wasted. So you're looking at $3 billion being wasted in 6 years. And by wastage, I mean pilferation, mismanagement, things not being done. For example, Lautoka swimming pool, FNU campus in Lambasa, the funding goes from government to these institutions. So there are a lot of examples of wastage. Now we are going to start by cutting down salaries of ministers and the allowances by 1/3 in the first 100 days. It may not mean millions and millions of dollars, but that's going to be a very symbolic, decisive signal that we mean business, we mean cutting out wastage, so that we can put that money back into where it's needed: health, infrastructure, social welfare. In terms of revenue, Sashi, as I said, they have made laws. They expect us to use some old data. I don't believe a lot of this data that is coming out from the government institutions, particularly from the Bureau of Statistics, which was always an independent institution. So even doing a manifesto, that's why they made this law, because they want to stop the opposition, and they know that we can't categorically put a finger on some of the figures. So if I say I'm going to raise this much revenue as a result of this tax, or I'm going to reduce tax here and increase tax there, I can't say that now. If I don't say it properly, if I don't have the data and put it in the manifesto, I could be charged and sent to jail. So I don't believe many of the figures that coming from the government. So when we get into government, the first thing we'll have to do, Sashi, is to go and find out what's there.
Yeah, the cupboard might be bare, for all you know. I mean,
exactly. And so we will, in the first 100 days, as we've said, that we're going to hold an economic summit. We're going to look at what's there, and then come up with a well-defined budget that will lay down in the reality of what exists and the reality of where we can go from there. And I would be lying to the people of this country if I say I'm going to do this to get this amount of revenue, because we don't know what is the reality on the ground, what is the reality in government. We can't believe 100% what is there, what they put out.
All right, point made. During your press conference in Lautoka, you held a media conference where you took time to assure the media that you would guarantee their media freedom if the NFP and the People's Alliance came into power. My question to you, Professor Biman, is why was this so necessary to spell out during that media conference?
Because, Sashi, I know that the media and the journalists are always under threat. We have had draconian Media Industry Development Act, Media Decree. There's been some amendments to take away jail terms and others on journalists, but media editors, publishers, still have this law hanging on their head. They have to watch their backs all the time, to ensure that they don't play foul to the law. And those who are independent media organizations, at least 2 or 3 that I know, as opposed to some others, including our state-funded media organization, we know what the journalists are going through. We know what genuine media organizations who want to be fair, who want to provide balanced reporting are going through. So that's why we are saying quite categorically, openly, to assure them, and all those who are being forced right now to be biased, we are saying to all of them that when we come into government, we will free them. We will free them so that they can play their role as the 4th state in the country, to hold governments to account. We have some media organizations which want to hold the opposition to account. Of course, you hold the opposition to account, but for God's sake, hold the government to account as well.
All right. Professor Biman, can we have a quick fire round of questions? Just needs brief answers. As we head to the end of our program. So, quick fire round. Are you ready, sir?
Sure.
Council elections. What are your plans insofar as the councils are concerned? Are there any plans to restore municipal councils to what they were?
Immediately when we get into government, we will set the process in place so that we can, as soon as possible, have town and city council elections.
Wonderful. Corvus. Corvus has been this government's spin doctors for their public relations exercise. Corvus, of course, coming out of the USA. What are your plans for Corvus if you get in government?
They'll be gone as soon as we get into government. We don't need them.
All right. What institutions of freedom would you like to see immediately restored?
Well, Sashi, all of them.
All right.
All of them. Freedom,
Great.
association, freedom of speech, any law. In fact, we will be, I think I can say this, that we will be reviewing all the draconian pieces of see, one thing, let me just explain this very quickly. Some of the draconian laws that the military decrees that were used by the military government to run the country have been preserved in the 2013 constitution. So this is a government which is still running on some of those laws. So we'll have to come back and quickly review some of those laws, or repeal some of them, or change them, to make sure that we restore all the freedoms and the rights of people that existed before.
What are your plans for FICAC?
Well, right now, the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions Office, which is an independent office, must have an overall jurisdiction on all criminal charges, whether it's by FICAC. Right now, they don't have to go to the DPP. And some people have rightly pointed out that FICAC has been used as a tool to harass political opposition, political figures and critics of government. That is something that we want to address. Even if it is just a perception, we want to address that.
All right. And what are your thoughts about the armed forces? What role should they play in the governance of Fiji?
Well, the armed forces, the police, these are independent institutions. They have a role. They have a constitutional role, and under the constitution, they play their roles. And the government of the day will have to ensure that these independent institutions and arms of government are adequately resourced, and government works in partnership with these institutions to ensure national security, stability that is usually a partnership. And these independent institutions do not usurp the powers of the government. they work with the government of the day. And the next government envisages a very, very clear, fruitful partnership, relationship with independent institutions, requiring them to work independently, within the ambit of the constitutional role that they all have.
The National Federation Party was in the last Parliament of Fiji. What are the party's expectations this time around?
Well, in terms of our success in the election, Sashi, if that's what you meant, we are going to win substantially more seats than what we won in the last two elections, and I want to leave it there. And we are confident. The feedback that we're getting from the people is that the National Federation Party will be a force in government.
Well, I'm not going to leave it there because I'm going to ask you to look into your imaginary crystal ball and tell me, how many seats do you believe you will win in this election? Are you going to hazard a guess?
Well, I mean, some people are saying, some so-called modelers are saying, we are likely to have between 10 to 15 seats. Some saying, we are going to have more. Some of our candidates, have a sense of exuberance where they feel that they could or we could win, substantially more seats than what people are predicting, which is between 10 to 15. So, but overall, Sashi, we are very, very happy with the support that we are getting from the people, and all we know is that we are going to be in government in partnership with the People's Alliance.
Professor Biman, what is your message to the voters in Fiji as well as those who are abroad and are going to vote in these elections?
One very clear message, Sashi. We, the NFP and the People's Alliance, are providing a very, very clear choice to the people of this country. The next government, led by Biman Prasad and Sitiveni Rambuka, or Sitiveni Rambuka, Biman, and the People's Alliance and the team, is for the first time after 16 years providing a very, very clear choice, a different style of government, an inclusive, consultative, caring government, which people will be proud of. And I'm saying to the people, you have seen what has happened in the last 16 years. You have seen the two-man rule. You are now going to see a government led by a team, a government that will consult with you, work with you in partnership. And I want to say to all the people of this country and our friends overseas, and I want to thank our friends in overseas for supporting Fiji. They're still supporting. The estimate for this year is that we might hit over $1 billion in terms of remittances. So I want to thank all those people who are living abroad to think about the state of democracy in this country. Many of you are enjoying the benefits and the fruits of democracy and freedom. Please do not support dictatorship in Fiji. And NFP and PA are offering that freedom, that democratic style of government. And I urge all of you to support us. Tell your family and friends here in Fiji that this is a very, very clear choice that we are offering to the people of Fiji. They can trust us to do the right thing in government. And that's why I am in politics. That's where I am going. And that will be my objective in government. That is my message to the people of Fiji and all my friends and families and those who have Fiji in their heart to think carefully in this election.
All right. I got 2 or 3 more questions before we join your political colleague, Ms. Sashi Kiran, on the show. Where can voters access your party's vision statement on Friday? Will that be on your webpage?
it'll be we'll let people know through our Facebook.
Mhm.
All our documents will be on our website, and people, if they are interested in what NFP offered in 2018, and what are some of the things that has happened. Our 2018 manifesto is already on our website, and our vision document and statement, and what we will do in the first 100 days and in the first 6 months will be available as soon as we launch that on Friday, or probably after that. We haven't decided on the exact date, Sashi, but we'll let you know.
Professor Biman, you have a great team of candidates in your NFP team. Is there anything you would like to say to your troops?
Well, the only thing I can say, Sashi, is we have such a fabulous group of people. Many of them stars in their own right, in their own area. And I am so delighted. And in fact, I feel honored and very proud to lead a team which is ready to save the people of Fiji. And I say to them, keep going. The race is not over. Uh, 2 more weeks, and remain focused. Don't be sidetracked by personal attacks. Don't be sidetracked by personal attacks from Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum. Just remain focused, be humble, be focused, and know that we have a bigger objective to achieve than to respond to some of these gutter level attacks on the party and its leadership.
I have one question that has come in from Auckland, New Zealand. If you do form government in your partnership with the People's Alliance, will you have a look at the immigration blacklist and ensure that people have the freedom to return to Fiji?
Absolutely, Sashi. We are not going to penalize. In fact, this is one of the nastiest things that this government has done. I mean, look at what they did to Professor Bridgelal. I mean, the man was banned from Fiji, and then when he died, his wife, Dr. Padma Lal, did nothing. She wanted to bring the ashes back to Fiji and take it to his birthplace in Thambia. And look at what is the mentality of these people, who are leading this country. I say to the people of Fiji, just think about this one incident. Just think about Professor Bridgelal, the most eminent, Girmit historian, for Fiji. Nobody, studying Fiji can escape what Professor Bridgelal has said about Fiji. And so we will immediately ensure that there is no blacklist of our former Fiji citizens or anyone. We must not be afraid of critics. We are not going to do that, Sashi. I know there are a lot of people out there, who write who write really personal things, attacks. We will welcome them as well. We will let them
Okay.
come to Fiji. So there will be no blacklists.
All right, Professor Biman, finally, I would like to extend an invitation to you as the leader of the National Federation Party to appear on a special program on SSTP on Sunday, the 11th of December 2022. On this Sunday, I will have all the major opposition party leaders and will have a brief discussion with each one of you about your campaign, and most importantly, give each one of you an opportunity to deliver your opposition leader's address to the nation as a final appeal to the voters. Will you please be so kind as to accept my invitation, Professor Biman?
Absolutely, Sashi. It'll be a pleasure to be with you again. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for confirming that. Look, thank you so much for your very candid answers today in today's episode of SSTP. A big, big thank you to you, Dhanyavad Vinakavakulevu, for being chief guest in episode 46 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak to you today. And I thank you very much for taking part in the program, sir.
Thank you, Sashi. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
And coming up is one of your candidates, so I hope you will be in the background giving her your support as well. So thank
She's a
you, and
she's a star.
thank you, and goodbye for now. And I'll talk to your star as well. Thank you. Goodbye for you. Goodbye to you now, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, to my viewers, please do not go away, because coming straight up, as promised, is my interview with candidate number 207, the charismatic Ms. Sashi Kiran.
Leader.
Yes, we were just trying to put something up on the screen, and I hope we can do it. Anyway, just give me a moment or so.
Leaders come and go. We cannot guarantee long-lasting peace and security and stability by relying on just one man. What happens when he's gone? It will always come back to you and I. True peace and security relies on all of us living and working side by side. The key to true stability and lasting peaceful relations between ethnic groups in Fiji is respecting each other, understanding each other, and caring for each other. We have lived with each other for generations, and if we continue to appreciate each other's culture, we will be able to coexist peacefully. We do not need to rely on Fiji First for stability. We are enough for each other. We are Fiji.
We are with Shashi.
And if you didn't, I apologize. Well, as I said, my next guest on Sashi Singh's Talking Point this afternoon is a former chief guest on SSTP who appeared in the program on Sunday, 13th March this year. At that time, our next guest was the Chief Executive Officer for the Foundation for Rural Integrated Enterprises and Development, FRIEND. It is now my pleasure to welcome Ms. Sashi Kiran back to SSTP. Sashi, it's taken longer than I thought. I apologize for the delay. Welcome back to SSTP.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Thank you for this time. Like I said, I have a meeting waiting for me, so I won't be able to join in for too long.
Yeah, we'll make it nice, quick, and short. I can promise you that. In November this year, you resigned from FRIEND. At the time of your resignation, you said it's time to work at the national level. What did you mean by this statement?
So I remember the last question you'd asked me on your program last time was, why would I not join politics? I was very adamant I was not going to join politics. And one of the reasons was that Richard Naidu was going to stand for politics, and he was a board member. He understood the issues on the ground, and we thought we'll be able to work through him at the national level. When Suva was hit with pandemic, actually the entire pandemic, when I was with FRIEND, I was able to call him and talk to him about the details, and he understood the issues on the ground. But when he was put out of the race because of the case that you mentioned earlier, then I felt there was very little choice, and the ongoing issues on the ground has not only be raised, but there has to be some definitive work done at the national level. And that's why I jumped in to work at that level.
All right. Now, you had been with FRIEND for the past 25 years. It would have
20.
taken 20 years. It would have taken a lot of strength of conviction to tender your resignation as the CEO of FRIEND. What was it? You mentioned the Richard Naidu factor. Was that the final push that made you take that plunge, or was there any
Yes.
other factor?
Well, we know the issues that we had to highlight on the national level. But Richard Naidu was the final factor, because if he was not going to be in Parliament, I thought we couldn't probably push the issues we wanted to. So he was the final factor.
Okay.
Did it take too long to decide? I think the date was declared on Sunday. I actually decided after that, after speaking. Professor Biman was charged, and Richard was definite he was going to be found guilty the way the case was going. So I decided by Monday or Tuesday, called the board meeting on Thursday, and resigned on Friday. I'm still the CEO of Friend for the
Okay.
next few months, but I took leave of absence immediately and walked out. Pretty much told the staff on Thursday after board meeting, and walked out. Amidst a lot of confusion, and confusion for me as well, because I just walked out. And the organization will look after itself for the next few weeks while I take time off to just campaign. I didn't want anybody to accuse me of using Friend and its resources for campaigning, so that's why I just took leave and walked out.
Well, talking about accusations, no sooner had you announced your candidature that the Fiji First Party General Secretary attacked you by saying that you had used your former position as Friend CEO to further your political agenda. How did that statement make you feel? I mean, you've been doing public service for 20 odd years, for God's sake.
25. Before I
25.
joined Friend, I had worked for the 2000 crisis. I had worked for an NGO before that. I had scholarships running before that. His accusations mattered not at all. It didn't even touch me in heart, head, anywhere, because I know he was just trying to get attention. Probably he doesn't understand that I've been working in this field much longer than he's probably been back in Fiji. So I really didn't think much of it, carried on with what needed to be done. But what was interesting was, I think when I brought out a mega issue for the Western Division, termites.
Yes.
Interestingly, when he accused me, he said she doesn't know there's a budget allocation to biosecurity on that. If there was a budget allocation, how does it impact the people on the ground? So I thought about that a little bit. What does it mean? Because we don't see any awareness or education program or any support for people who are victims of termite infection. But really, I think if my conscience is clear, all these criticisms matters not at all.
I found something very interesting, because when he attacked you, you came straight back, and the brave woman that you are, you made a statement in your own right. You said that after December 14th, no one will worry about Syed Qayyum. What were you saying there? Tell us.
I think if people are thinking people, and our people are thinking people, after pandemic, a lot of people have realized that there has been no change, the change that they have been talking about for the last 16 years. Our water, our hospitals, everything has just deteriorated. Nobody wants these guys to continue, and that's something we hear very, very strongly. So if he's not going to be voted in, if he's not going to be in power, why does his opinion even matter?
Okay. Now, what do you bring to the table of national politics? What does Shashi Kiran bring?
Hopefully, a few things. One of the things that I've felt very strongly about since 2000 and prior is it's just painful, or it makes me very angry when politicians use race card. And for the last 20 years, I've been working hard on peace building and in that understanding that nobody should separate us or divide us. So that, I think, being able to work together on different, because all ethnic groups, and I'm not talking only about indigenous Fijians and Indo-Fijians, Rotumans, they're Rambi Islanders, they're Melanesians, the people from Kiowa Island. All the people have different strengths. For example, one thing I discovered in my work was the Rambi people make a coconut syrup, a toddy kind of thing, but they actually cook it as a coconut syrup, which is an alternative to cane sugar. And it's an amazing product, that could replace the sugar that we utilize. Every community has a strength. And I think what I bring to the table is being able to work with them. The other thing I bring to the table is understanding the community, poverty, rural women, solo women we've worked with closely in the last couple of years. And in the last 2 years, we've worked heavily with procurement for the Ministry of Health. And I think we understand the issues in the health system. I've also worked in interior parts of rural areas and maritime, and the issues of access, whether it's food, education. Kids have to walk long distances to even be able to get to a school, their food. Infrastructure is something that we keep hearing, but the water access, whether it's mainland or the outer islands, that remains a big issue. What I also bring to the table is experience in working with people, experience in participatory conversations, being able to consult. One thing that I have been asked, or people have asked me, one of the things I think I felt is people feel that I belong to them, because there are a couple of communities who reached out to me and said, when we've discussed issues, even though it's taken me time to find resources, I always go back to a particular community if there has been an issue raised, to see how do we actually find resources or skills to be able to change the status quo. And we never have too much resources, but we've tried our best. So I think I bring a lot of those experiences from the people on the ground. And having worked in the rural communities for 25 years, I'm hoping that we can make some massive changes. We have seen, and Professor has talked about youth and vocational being closed. In the recent times, one of the things that has really amazed me is as people were unemployed, and in my past work, we were able to develop small grants programs, and 100% of those people, with all the monitoring that was done, were very successful in developing their livelihoods. And more young people have said to me that they may get educated, but they can't get loans. They don't get assistance to be able to start enterprises. So the single moms, same thing. We've seen that social welfare is actually not working. Sadly, also, I remember in your last program, I said to you, when you said, why not join politics? I said, I'm going to go and develop aged care and care for disability. Things that have really been stuck to my heart. And I see on the ground, there's still a huge need for aged care, for disability care. And sadly, I think the leaders sitting in Suva do not listen to people maybe on the ground, because the big issues are, for example, whether it's termite. In Lautoka, the only old people's home serving in the entire Western Division has been shut down because the buildings have been totally destroyed by termites. Last week, I saw the Minister for Women saying that the only home for street people is in Suva. She is somehow or the other not listening that there's a home in Lautoka that people had set up and had people off the streets. Even welfare officers are taking the people and leaving them there because the old people's home is not working. So I think I bring to the table a listening ear, an experience of understanding the issues out in largely rural areas, though the pandemic has given me insights in urban as well. We had worked extensively in squatters and in peri-urban, but pandemic has made me understand a bit of urban issues as well.
Well said, Sashi. Now, talking about governments, etc., I understand that through Friend, you even assisted the Ministry of Health during the pandemic. I mean, how did you render support to the ministry?
I think that time the urgent thing for us was between us and the disease were the frontline workers, and we had to support them. And remember, Lautoka Hospital had gone into shutdown with 450 people in there, lockdown. And we realized that the next day that the doctors and nurses didn't have mattresses and things. They were just had to go into a lockdown. So through the request with Crisis Center was very helpful and helped us mobilize mattresses, sheets, things for the people at the hospital. But over time, we realized that there was resources being spent on vaccination and NCDs were neglected. So medicines, telehealth center, and then we realized that there were equipment missing. So we talked to some of the donor agencies and provided not only in Lotoka, but when Kandau was affected, Yasawa was affected. We made sure even the oxy tanks, all sorts of things we were giving at that time, oximeters, ECGs. We had teams on the ground with the medical teams, making sure that the medical isolated people were getting food, but also medical. We provided something like $2 to $3 million worth of medical equipment pretty much throughout Fiji, including Vanuatu at that time. But again, I can be accused of talking about friend, but that's what I did till a month ago.
Nobody is going to accuse you on this program. We know what you've done. Now, what are people saying to you as you move around during your campaigning?
Mixed messages. Some people have said to me within the first week, "Oh my God, where will we go if we need wheelchair and food?" I said the organization would still be there, and there are people who will continue to support you. The other thing that I've heard is people have said every time you listen to us, you had always come back with the solution. When you go into parliament, will you forget us? Because they say many times when people go and they're not listening to the people on the ground. So I've assured them that yes, I've had enormous amount of support from the ground that's been overwhelming, because when I entered this, I really didn't know what it takes to campaign or go out and connect with people. But I've had a lot of support from the ground, and for that, I'm grateful.
Wonderful. Now, you have been critical of the water infrastructure and recently spoke about the example of Ababa village in Lotoka. Can you please tell us the situation there?
Ambada is about 10 kilometers out of Lotoka, up in the hills in the mountains. It's a forest reserve, and it has, of course, the source of water that goes from there. No, it's not only Ambada. Most villages I found in the upper ranges, but also in rural areas like even Karutumbu and Rai and other places. Water is generally channeled from the rivers into a tank, and people drink it directly. And it's considered safe. But what we were told in Nambada is like the wild pigs and all that, and that water is probably contaminated. They had actually asked us, could we help them with the water testing? And then when we realized that WEF was holding the lease, we said, well, WEF should be, WEF actually, Water Authority of Fiji is holding the lease of that village and the water system. So that was a bit surprising for us, that they were very concerned about the water. When I went into the village, the first thing they told me, they'd actually invited me for income generation and other things. This is when I was working for a friend. But the first thing they raised was the issue of water. They also said they had no treated water. And each time it rains, and I've seen it again and again, each time it rains, the water tanks get browny water because of the soil erosion. And then people have all this murky water that they have to drink. So in this particular village, we saw that their little water filters were given to house. But when children are running around, they don't naturally go to this filter and drink it. They drink water from everywhere. And they were talking about how they're affected by the issue of tummy bugs and all, but also we saw a lot of skin ailments. Let me say something else here, Sashi. Each natural disaster, I get really worked up when we are on the ground immediately, and most places there's water cut. So even in the corridor of Balotoka, for example, there'll be water cut. And because our water has been privatized, until WEF is paid by government, they don't move. So if a village doesn't have water, nobody will run like a truck with a truck like PWD used to and fill their tanks. And I've seen for days people would depend on brown water in the drains, so to speak. And immediately we see typhoid, diarrhea, leptospirosis, and all sorts of things. And these are preventable if we can look at access to water.
Wow.
Clean water.
And it's amazing that this that it's amazing that a village has to approach you to test water supplies for them, where one would expect that this would be readily available to the villagers. Sashi, you've
It's
entered the
not
political.
uncommon. It's not
Okay.
uncommon. We've
Wow.
tested water in other places, helped with the installation of filter in other places, so it's not uncommon.
Sashi, I tried to play your advertisement a little while ago. I think we managed to play it. We were having trouble in our studio to actually watch it. Were you able to see that?
Yes, yes, I was able to see it.
Wonderful advertisement. Now, that advertisement speaks of peace and security. How important is that to you?
Every time the current prime minister has been saying about bloodshed in the last few campaigns, it's made me very angry, and that's why I put that together. Peace and security, this country has been peaceful. If you remember, when Syria, fifth ship, Syria was wrecked in the colonial days, the indigenous people didn't wait for a leader to come and tell them to rescue people of Indian origin. They went out and rescued. I've often said that when I went to PNG for election observation and I was in a boat in rough seas, I realized how much I trust my people of the land. Because every time I've been in a boat in choppy waters, whether it's Yasawa or Lao, I've always felt very safe. I've worked in extreme rural areas, and I've never felt threat or fear living amongst the indigenous people. Actually, feel very protected and safe. So somebody coming in and saying that you need a leader to keep one ethnic group safe from the other, it makes me really, really angry because we've lived together peacefully each time a politician doesn't come to poke us around.
Okay. Part of that advertisement also talks of respect for each other's culture. I love that. That's a very, very important part in any community, is that respect for culture. Would you like to elaborate why that's in your ad as well?
I think one of the things, the reason we don't, there's a lot of fear easy to generate because we probably don't understand each other enough. The indigenous people understand probably us much more than we understand them, because I've seen even the chiefs in Rewa, in interior places, are able to speak Hindi. They've worked with us, but we don't speak the language as much. And most Indo people I've spoken with or taken them to village, they said this is the first time they've ever seen a Yangona ceremony. Or so I think when we don't understand the concept of Vanua, when we don't understand the concept of how the indigenous people live and how beautiful it is, it's easy for people to put thoughts in our heads. And any government that comes in, I think, needs to create that very enabling learning environment where we need to learn about each other's culture more. It's extremely important to be able to love and respect each other.
Sashi, I know you have a commitment and I've gone over time. I'm just going to ask you 2 or 3 more questions very quickly. Please stay with me. How is your campaign going?
Tough. I don't know what it takes to campaign, actually. People have been very lovely, but it's just not my style to go and market myself. So I've struggled a little bit. I mean, I can't go and say, look, you vote for me and I'll do this for you. But one thing beautiful has been that people have said, well, we've seen you do this and we just want to talk to you about the issues we are facing. I have said in every meeting, I'm not making any promises. If you look at my track record, I have always listened to the people and tried to find some solutions. I have loved the vision document of NFP, and I think it encompasses a lot of issues I'm listening to. And NFP the leadership has been very open to new issues, like when I talked about termite housing, the little things that I'm hearing every day, I talk to them. They've been very open to looking into it and thinking about it. But I'm not making promises, Sashi. And I don't know. I think politicians just have a habit of making promises. So I don't know how I'll do it at the end of the campaign.
Sashi, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have to make any promises. The people of Fiji will get behind you because your track record speaks for itself. You have been a person for the people of Fiji, and Fiji needs people like you. Now, I asked you about how your campaign is going. My next question is, where do you rely on for your support?
Support for the people support?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, where do you rely on your support?
Actually, I've been very lucky, I think. I've had inbox messages and I've said it to the party, and some of them have been surprised. But I've been getting messages pretty much from Western Division. That's namely to Reki people saying, would you come to us? We are ready to have a meeting in my house and things like that. I've also had contacts from the Yasawas and from Vanuatu. And because I had jumped in so late, I'm not able to get everywhere, but I'm reaching out to people I know, but I'm also contacting the people who are reaching out to me. And for that, I'm grateful. Because without that, actually, after I made a decision and I came down back from the declaration, it took me a couple of days to even think, okay, what do I do and how do I campaign? So I was grateful when people started reaching out to me and saying, would you come to my area and we'd like to have a meeting with you. So it's
Wonderful.
largely Western Division.
Now, I understand that friends like Raymond Singh, Alan Lockington, these guys are right behind you.
Yes.
How does it feel to get their support?
Very grateful, because honestly, and I was saying this to Richard and the other team members, I was feeling a bit lost. This is not something I've done. So when I went and I thought, okay, I've resigned from Friend and here I am going out, I was feeling a bit lost. So a lot of these veterans have walked up to me and said, we are there, we support you. And that emotionally made a lot of difference. Not only people like Alan and Raymond. There have been, elders, Mr. Reddy's brothers, their sons, and many other political campaigners have actually come out and said, we thank you for standing up. We will support you. Quite a few elders have come up, and I'm really grateful for that support and the guidance.
I saw that photograph on Facebook yesterday, Mr. Jairam Reddy's brother pledging support to you. That was wonderfully done. What is your message to the voters in Fiji, Sashi?
Don't get fooled during the blackout period. That's something Professor has said. But think about what you need. Some people I talk to are talking about very, very the issues of, for example, we've got free education, we got this, we got that. I think I'm going to ask people to think big. Are you willing to have your child go to hospital and have no medication and die? Because this is something we saw a lot during the last 2 years. Hospitals, access to water, education sector will only be improved by any new government that comes in. Water access will only be improved. So think big and have courage to do the right thing. I also hear people saying, oh, I go to this rally to collect freebies and I go to that collector, I think, is that the right thing to do? I think this is the time for us to start doing the right thing and vote wisely, because our future depends on it. Our future, for me also, it's very painful to know that people like Professor Brijlal cannot come home for no reason whatsoever. People like Richard Naidu, the reason I trusted him to take our voice and I didn't want to stand for election is because he's an honest, clean man that we've trusted. People like them being persecuted, is that something we want for our children going forward? So I'm just going to ask people to please think wisely, think big, and stand by us, because many of us have taken the risk. We take a political risk to get up, and we need your support to be able to bring change. I also say to people that you are saying that things have not changed, but especially Indians are saying, "Any chalan do stability to rahi." Like, let it go. At least we have stability. We've always had stability. I remember the pain of 2000. Many people have forgotten. I have gone to every community that had suffered violence, and that was Western Division, Tailevu, Vanuatu. We've gone through our ups and downs, and nobody talks about some of those things. I'm saying to people, give 4 years another party, and if you're not happy with them, you can go back after 4 years and vote for your old government again if you want. 4 years is not too long, but at least give another party a chance.
Sashi, do you think in your lifetime there will be a woman prime minister in Fiji?
I don't know. It's not something I think we are thinking right now about, There are some very capable women, but I think we've all fallen behind our leaders. It hasn't really about gender for us. It's at the moment about change and trying to do the right thing. But I think if we put our mind to it, the country is ready. Country has been very ready. I mean, have been very supportive of women's growth. I must say to you that for all that people talk about discrimination, and yes, there is a lot of discrimination, whether it's women or ethnic or whatever. I am saying that I'm very, very blessed because a lot of men have supported me to where I am. So country is ready. I mean, people are ready, I think, but I don't know whether it's something we are focusing on right now. Our focus is really change and improving the nation, and I think we need all men and women that are going to parliament.
All right, I've got to let you go, but before you go, is there anything else you want to say? Tell us your candidate number. Anything else you want to say? Go for it.
Okay. I'm going to appeal to people of Indian origin in particular and say that every time somebody has put fear in us, we have become scared. And today, the more I think about it, we are less than around 30% of the population. There are more indigenous people, there are other minority groups. We've lived together. And if you think about it, in every household that I know, where the elders, most of our cousins are abroad, when we need assistance or help for our elders, for our children, we've always reached out to the indigenous people, and they've been so good. Most of the treasures we have in our house, the indigenous trusted member of the family always knows where it is. My house access, there's an indigenous person who has the key, all the time. We've lived together, we've been a member of each other, and please do not allow politicians to separate us on an ongoing basis. We both have strengths, we have to work together, and that is my biggest worry, Sashi, that each political event, the fear is put on, and then we have Indians thinking, no, I can't vote like this if something happens. So please think about that, one. Secondly, I think infrastructure and health is a major challenge, and we've been continuously hearing that, whether it's health or termite-ridden houses. Or one thing I'd like to probably highlight to you is, it's cyclone season, and now when we are going into the villages, we are seeing 2 or 3 uto, which I'm told means that there is an impending disaster. None of our evacuation centers that are allocated have engineer certificate. Normally, the schools are so run down, and that's where our people are supposed to take shelter. After each disaster season, we talk about disability, access to toilets, this, that, and the other, but nothing actually happens. So if there's a disaster tomorrow, we are going to have our people run to these compromised shelters. These things matter. And when people take a decision to vote, whether it is talking about agriculture, livelihood, solo moms, widows, welfare, think about it. We are not where we should be right now. We are not able to give dignity to our elders, our poor. And each vote can make the difference. And I would like people to please put their trust in us and give us 4 years to try and change the situation. And if you don't trust us after that, if you think we failed you, by all means, you can take your last government back. Thank you.
You've said your piece?
Yes, I think I have. And my number is 207.
I was just going to ask you to say that. So what is the number?
207. Richard
right.
says, remember 007, 207.
207. All right, Sashi Kiran, thank you very much for being part of today's episode. I know I kept you waiting for a very long time. I also know you've got a commitment. My apologies for that. But look, wishing you all the very best in your election campaign. Wishing you all the very best in terms of that the voting goes your way and that you make it to Parliament in Fiji. We need women like you in Parliament. Thank you very much, Sashi. Goodbye to you and all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
God bless you. And we hope to talk to you after the elections, and hopefully that's going to be you wearing a different hat. So cheers and all the best. And
Thank
regards to Richard, please.
Yes,
Give Richard
certainly.
our best wishes as well.
I actually tell him it's his fault that I'm here, so he has to support us.
All right. Wonderful.
Okay.
From one Sashi to the other, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers
Really
now.
appreciate. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now. Well, that was Sashi Kiran from the National Federation Party, candidate number 207. Wow, we've been going for 3 hours and 44 minutes. It's been a marathon. So to my viewers, once again, before I leave you, let me remind you that our next guest next week is going to be none other than the leader of the People's Alliance Party, Mr. Sithiveni Rambuka. That is going to be episode 47 next week. Remember, SSTP, we ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. As I say, Fijians want to know. To my SSTP team for today, thank you for today's episode. And I thank you, all our viewers, for staying with us for all this long. Thank you for your likes and emojis, and especially to those who have sent stars as well. Vinaka Bakalevu. You are what makes the platform a huge, huge success. So next week is Mr. Sithiveni Rambuka from the People's Alliance Party, and I'll be talking to him about his plans for government with the National Federation Party, what they will do in the first 100 days, what policies they are going to implement, and a whole lot of challenges that's been thrown his way in the last week. I hope to see you next Sunday on episode 47 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point at 11 a.m. Sydney time, 12 noon in Fiji, 1 p.m. in New Zealand, and at 4 p.m. on Saturday afternoon in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Until next week, I wish you have a very safe and happy week. In closing, I leave you with this quote from Alan Moore, who said, "People shouldn't be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of their people." I'll repeat that. People shouldn't be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of their people. That quote from Alan Moore. Remember, Fiji, your vote has power. Exercise your right to vote. Well, that's it for episode 46 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Next week, as I said, episode 47. Till the next program, I am your host, Sashi Singh, bidding you goodbye, namaste, and nisamore. Goodbye, world.